Hii mimba si yako.
Una siri wewe.
Jamani.
Wajua hapa sisi tuendelea kupoteza muda na yule mtoto anaendelea kuteseka kule.
Sisi tunamhitaji zaidi kuliko vile anatuhitaji sisi.
Niko tayari kuchukua hatua ya kulipiza kisasi.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
You're being pathetic, Santiago. I don't know why you're so jealous of your brother.
No, Father, I'm not jealous of my brother. If I'm telling you I want her to leave, it's because I have good reasons.
Be careful with what you're about to say.
But the one thing I can't understand is why is everybody so crazy about that crass girl? Even my foolish brother.
Just think that in the long run, if you didn't break up with her, you would have hurt her worse, and you would have hurt yourself as well.
So what if I did? So do you want her to find out what went on between us? She might end up committing suicide.
Oh, come on, why would you do that?
Well, she is intense just like you.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Happy New Month. I know we are all excited that we've made it through the 90 days of January. You're watching KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya, and I'm Regina Manyara. It is the 1st of February 2022. They call it the month of love, so I wish you, those who wait for this particular month, I know especially, the men's conference is just but around the corner. However, looking at it this way, we need to adopt grateful hearts, even for what we think is ordinary. May you be loved true and right during this month. For some of us, it marks a very beautiful journey, being the month of February. I don't know about the rest of the team who are here with me and are going to be introducing themselves shortly. Just to give you a brief of what you should be expecting in our news briefs this morning. Reprieve for NHIF, especially persons who you rely on NHIF. Now, that is after a deal that was struck yesterday. Then one is arrested following the Mandera explosion that claimed 7 lives. And yours truly, that is Kituo cha Mama na Baba. We call it BH, Broadcasting House, is the most improved television station in the nation. This will be coming up in not too long as we talk Marty's News that is also available on our website at www.kbc.ca.ke. Introducing my colleagues. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, and just to put in perspective, we'll be going for a conference on the 11th. That will be on Friday. Friday, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, then we'll be back on Tuesday. Yes, okay. On 15th. So it will be on a Tuesday. Members, please take note. The conference. So we are reporting on Friday and Saturday. The conference takes place on Sunday and Monday. Then we can now go back on Tuesday. So
Noted.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Okay.
How are you people? Good morning. As Regina said, it's a new month and we hope that you are doing fantastic. Politically speaking, yes, it's that month again, 6th of this month. voter registration will be ending on that particular day, and we'll be having that discussion later on with the IEBC officials here in studio to tell us how is that process going on so far. According to the projection from the IEBC, it's not looking up so good. We are going to have that discussion for them to put into perspective, as well as UDA now says that they're just friends with ANC and Ford Kenya. Interesting politics, right? Okay, more coming later on in the program. Karibu, my name is Victor Olo.
Wagwan people.
Wagwan.
Wagwan.
You have the memo now?
Doreen Wagwan.
Valentine's is coming.
Oh, you have the memo?
Victor Wagwan.
Wagwan.
Regina Wagwan.
Wagwan.
What's Wagwan people?
What's Wagwan media area?
Oh, wananiangusha director.
Oh, take that
They
again.
are dropping
we're
me.
supposed to do this.
Wagwan.
Wagwan.
Mambo Aital.
Mambo Aita.
Ire.
We people are in the area. Man, I almost followed my tongue.
Regina, since wewe ndio unajuanga marwebo, hii wimbo It's a New Day, it's a new something and I'm feeling good. Nani anajua venye inaitwa?
Kanungo.
Tutakwambia
Ai, sikia Victor na Kanungo.
Ni wewe tu
Victor, hebu
mwini.
angalia ile kona kwanza. Angalia kwa hiyo kona. We'll be back with you shortly. Good morning. Happy new month. Valentine's is coming. You don't have a boyfriend. You'll be sitting at home with me. Lonely. Happy new month. I do trust you have a beautiful morning this far. And for some reason, January hasn't been as bad as most people were anticipating, because honestly, sijaona watu wengi wakicomplain social media. Personally, it has been a very good month. Sijakuwa na madhina maige. I've actually had a very beautiful January, so I'm glad for that. I do hope you also had a beautiful month this far into the year we've come. February is here. Let's make the most of it. I am Jane Wambui, and as always, nothing but good. Tumewapangia hivi leo on Good Morning Kenya. And of course, being Tuesday, we'll be focusing on matters to do with health once we get to that particular segment. So keep it here to know what we'll be talking about today. Doreen.
You know what? People have not been complaining because it has gotten to a point whereby you just accept and leave. Like even if you complain, you realize better there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's some things that you just do not have control over. There's nothing much you can do about it. Even if you break a leg, break a hand, there's nothing much. So you just leave and choose peace.
But I think Doreen, the period of coronavirus has just hardened almost everyone. So we could not tell whether it's January, Sunday. Actually, it was all the same. So January came. It was like June last year, February last year, any other month. So I think we got hardened by the situation, by the circumstance. That's why imepita tu hivyo.
Baptism by fire.
Exactly. So we are used to.
It was like if you've survived 2 years wearing a mask,
Yes.
what has January got on you? Nothing.
Kaende.
Anyway, a beautiful morning to you, and just as everyone has mentioned, it is Tuesday, so obviously we have a lot in store for you today. Plenty more on the show up until 10 a.m. Different conversations to the what we have on the daily list, to the newspaper, and also how the roads will be looking like. Yesterday we didn't get a chance to look at how Likoni Road is looking like, so today that will be our focus, and this is simply because of that project that is still stalling since 2020 of September. Just that section between Jogo to House of Manji, that 1.7 kilometer stretch which had been awarded by Kurad, which is actually a road that was awarded a 900 million tender. So this has stalled for a while, and it's just that a small stretch. So this morning we'll look at the various reasons and factors as to why it has stalled, and perhaps if there's going to be a specific date that has been given for its completion, given the fact that that was to be done by March of 2021, which didn't happen. An update was given on September, still that didn't happen. So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Arange Okelo.
Good morning once again. If you're tuning in, this is KBC Channel 1, off with In the Headlines right now. Remember that we welcome your feedback. You can get us on Twitter at KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara, and I'm equally on Twitter at Ray Manyara. Now we start off with matters of healthcare, where private hospitals have abandoned plans to deny medical services to National Hospital Insurance Fund card holders. As Ruth Wamboi reports, the agreement comes as a relief to thousands of Kenyans who depend on the cover for services such as dialysis.
The Kenya Association of Private Hospitals had warned that it would stop engaging with the National Hospital Insurance Fund if the current contract is retained as it is. Last week, the association SG Dr. Timothy Olweni said they were in agreement with the current proposals by NHIF. On Monday, the parties agreed to iron out their differences to ensure Kenyans undisrupted access to medical services.
The contracts between NHIF and all service providers will be signed after the 30th of March or 31st of March, because the 31st March has 31 days.
We've reached an agreement. There shall be no halting of services at the private sector. We have given ourselves a moratorium period where we shall be able to review the current payment.
NHIF had revised downwards the amount of money it pays for claims lodged with dialysis and surgical services. Private hospitals had expressed concerns that proposals by NHIF will amount to losses.
We would like to urge the Ministry of Health and NHIF to consider expanding the kidney transplant package, so that most of the patients who are on dialysis can be able to transit to transplant.
If NHIF was to adhere to the people and do what it is supposed to do, the people out there, the money is out there. They make 120 billion disposable. The Kenyans make 120 billion disposable income.
The Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union says the government must equip public hospitals to cushion Kenyans against medical crisis.
Government to actually employ healthcare workers, both the doctors, the nurses, and even the clinical officers, because with that we'll ensure that there'll be services in every part of the country.
Kenyans will start enjoying the new benefits package of NHIF from the 1st of July 2022. Reporting from the county of Nairobi, I'm Ruth Wamboi.
That is quite some reprieve there. Now on to matters security. Police in Mandera have arrested one person in connection with the death of 7 people who died on the spot after the passenger van they were traveling in ran over an explosive at Hargasu area along the Arabia-Mandera Road. Security officers are also pursuing 2 cars that were ahead of the ill-fated van to explain how they knew that an explosive had been planted on the road before them to dodge it.
Scattered belongings and mangled wreckage is what was left of this vehicle after hitting a landmine in Agarso along the Arabia-Mandera Highway. The morning incident leaving at least 7 people dead and 13 others nursing injuries.
In total, there are about 13 casualties, the way Chief Officer has said. Those are 3 female. Of this female, there is a 3-year-old girl who got the fracture tibia fibula. And we are also received 7 bodies.
Area Regional Police Commander Robin Bonnet, while confirming the incident, said among the dead are 3 women and 4 men.
Kama mita 200 kutoka kwa patroli ya barabara. Ndio walienda kwa hiyo scene kuangalia. Walipata kuna watu tayari wamekufa na wengine wamekuwa seriously injured. Wengine walitoroka msituni.
The ill-fated vehicle was heading to a market at the time of the incident. Bunei also said police are pursuing occupants of 2 cars that were ahead of the ill-fated vehicle and managed to dodge the explosive.
Kuna gari mbili zilipita, sikaribia ukalbati kayapa, nafikiri kwa saini wameka. So tunataka wale gari mbili zilipita hapo watueleza kwa nini hawakupita kwa hiyo mali hiyo kalbati. Waliapa tu vienda pande waingie barabara mbele.
A statement from the police says the anti-terror police unit officers and other multi-agency security personnel are combing the incident area.
Keeping tabs on that at a time when security officers have reminded you and I to be vigilant and report any suspicious activity. We are high on alert given that particular, information regarding to a planned attack by a group of terrorists to the country. Now, on to matters telecommunications. Yours truly, and that is Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Television viewership has improved by over 6% in the last 1 year. And this is according to the 2021 State of Media Survey report released by the Media Council of Kenya. According to the report, the most watched content on television includes news, entertainment, religious production, and sports.
A 2021 survey by the Media Council of Kenya on public perception on media and performance has placed KBC Channel 1 as most improved in viewership.
I want to mention KBC, 8%. I think last year we were talking 2 to 3% KBC, if you remember. So there has been a lot of Kituo cha Baba na Mama. There has been a lot of improvement.
KBC now ranks among top 8 most preferred channels in Kenya. 3,589 respondents from 47 counties were interviewed during the research, which was conducted between November and December 2021. According to the survey, 58% of Kenyans interviewed consume TV content on a typical day, a drop from 74% in 2020. The survey also shows that media trust among the public has slightly dropped. Speaking during the launch of the report, Broadcasting and Telecommunication Principal Secretary Esther Koimet challenged the media industry to remain apolitical in its coverage of news so as to build public trust.
This is a worrying trend as the media is entrusted by the public to provide accurate information across all spheres.
12% of the respondents expressed having concern with media, citing issues such as little coverage on matters affecting rural areas, too much politics, and biased content coverage.
I therefore throw a challenge to the media fraternity in Kenya to come up with innovative ways that will aid in enhancing public trust in the media.
It is a big challenge for media to remain professional in such a polarized election like this one. But your hands are not tied, and it is not against media freedom to refuse to speak the language of the politicians to the people.
2019, 11, 2020 was bad, 14%. 2021 is an improvement. Only 12% have issues.
The report also said media freedom in Kenya has improved from position 103 last year to 102 this year globally.
And we still welcome your feedback on where we can improve our broadcasting, or rather our programming. Now we talk about matters of, voter registration. This is the last stretch for the mass registration exercise where it commenced on Monday, the enhanced voter registration in the diaspora, beginning with the United Arab Emirates. Now Canada will be the next stop today. Meanwhile, the Commission has so far registered 548,188 new voters in the second phase of the enhanced continuous voter registration exercise against a target of slightly over 2.9 million.
With the second phase of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission enhanced continuous voter registration exercise, the electoral body is far from hitting its target 1 week to the deadline. The electoral body has managed a quarter of its proposed target of close to 3 million by registering 548,000 new voters in the last 2 weeks.
We registered over 500,000 Kenyans, which is a better, we have done better than last week.
Nairobi County leads the pack with a total of registered new voters of 49,746, followed by Kiambu at 26,544. Isiolo and Lamu counties have the lowest voter registration number at 2,384 and 1,860 respectively.
Today being the last week, day one of voter verification exercise, we have registered like about 25 voters, and we expect the number to increase since it's the last week, the number to increase throughout the week, I mean.
The chances now to just register now so that you can express your by voting.
IEBC has, however, ruled out any extension of the exercise, which ends on the 6th of February 2022.
Please take advantage of this last week and register. If you have an ID card, go and register so that you can be able to elect leaders of your choice.
The electoral body has on Monday kicked off the enhanced continuous voter registration exercise in the United Arab Emirates at the Kenya Embassy in Abu Dhabi and Kenya Consulate in Dubai. In Canada, the exercise will start on Tuesday.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, has clarified that political parties have up until March to submit their membership list to the Registrar of Political Parties. This is contrary to a Gazette notice issued by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, giving April 9th as the deadline.
Speaking after meeting opinion leaders from Thika and Murang'a counties, Speaker Justin Muturi maintained that under the new law, party membership lists should be submitted to the Registrar of Political Parties 14 days before they are submitted to IEBC, which should be around March 26th.
But in that law, there is a provision that party membership lists be submitted to the Registrar of Political Parties at least 14 days before they are submitted to the IEBC.
Demystifying the confusion that has been there as to whether parties should submit the lists on February 9th, when government officers seeking elective seats are supposed to have resigned.
The Registrar of Political Parties is the one who is mandated by law to certify the party membership lists of all the political parties. Once they do that, now each party will be given their certified copies, true copies of their membership lists, which they can now onward transmit to the IEBC before the 9th.
He made the remarks as political parties across the country continue to race against time to put their houses in order ahead of the August 9th national elections.
To matters business, where the Capital Markets Authority is working on establishing different classes of counters in order to lure enterprises whose founders or owners are not keen on losing share control of their businesses. This will be through allowing listing of such shares but not allowing the founders to vote on crucial decisions.
In the proposed dual-class share structure, the Capital Markets Authority says companies will be able to seek finance for their companies without necessarily losing their decision-making rights in a business. Capital Markets Authority CEO Wycliffe Shamia says the structure is based on research of similar provisions in developed countries which have proven successful.
This will be then what can be issued for people to participate in if the issue is around I don't want to offload most of the shares I own because I can lose control and, of course, the right of making decision as the anchor shareholder or the main shareholder.
From a perception point by the founders or the family, they were most of them that we have engaged with in Kenya, they actually would want to own as much as 95% or none at all, or everything, so that it means you give a class of shares that has no voting rights.
Under the draft rule, such companies would be required to make the arrangement clear when listing shares in order for prospective shareholders to make informed decisions. Such companies will therefore be able to issue an IPO, raise funds for business and share profits thereafter without losing their anchor shares.
That have created a class of share that has no voting right. So for a family company that may have some concerns around letting go of their company, they can still be able to raise money without that worry about losing control.
To attract more companies as well as investors to Kenya's capital markets, the Capital Market Authority is considering revision of some provisions.
So once you put that money in the company, that money is for certain project. Put it in construction, put it in, put it in construction. So you build houses, you sell, and then it's a company. So for you who has invested, you just be getting your dividends the way any other person will get, because of the money you'll have raised has been invested in a particular project.
Consider both. Let's talk about matters of climate change, where Kenya now has been asked to consider both chemical and organic methods of agricultural production. A Hungarian delegation to Kenya who toured trigger chemicals said with a decreasing firm land and harsh weather patterns, there is need for hybrid innovation system to increase food production and lower Kenya's food export bill.
Seeking to leverage on Kenya's quest to add 1 million hectares of new farmland and invest in the sector through sales of modern farming technologies. The investments are part of a 10.8 billion shillings fund that enterprises from the European nation will invest in Kenya. However, the Hungarian government says agriculture can only be profitable if a hybrid solution that incorporates the use of appropriate chemicals such as fertilizer and organic farming for agricultural production. The hybrid system is backed to minimize the impact of climate change to the agriculture sector.
When we negotiated the Sustainable Development Goals, we ran into some very difficult brain teasers. One of them was how to produce more healthier food for a growing population with a decreasing amount of water on a land that cannot be expanded.
They are calling on the government to increase investment in the agriculture sector to reduce the country's food export bill.
Amount of land producing more, feeding more people, and all it is made in a way that is economically viable and financially sustainable.
According to the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, Kenya, as at the end of last year, spent 155.42 billion shillings on food imports, representing a 21% increase from the previous year.
Where the Cricket Kenya Independent Election Panel will begin the verification process of aspirants on the 16th of next month, ahead of the general elections slated for the 26th of the same month. Now led by the panel chairperson, Professor Kenneth Mutuma, the panel will receive nomination papers not later than 15th of February. So when you're talking about next month, it's already the 1st of February.
Amina Mohammed, attention has been put on the Federation's general elections that are set to be held on 26th of next month at Kasarani Stadium. The independent election panel that will oversee the elections has set 16th Feb be the date for verification of aspirants and will not receive nomination papers after 15th of same month.
The normalization committee shall forward to the independent electoral panel the members list which will contain the members who will have fulfilled the application requirements by 15th of February 2022. This is therefore to call upon the county cricket associations and cricket professional groups who have been registered by the sports registrar to apply for membership and associate membership of Cricket Kenya.
It's important that we communicate that in that window of 2 days, the 17th of February 2022 is the last date that we will be receiving nomination papers.
Various positions will be up for grabs, including the chairperson's position, the vice chairperson, treasurer, and development director, among others.
On Matters News this morning, remember, so much more is available on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. We are not done yet. We have quite a lot in store for you, including what has been captured by the various dailies this morning, as well as a quick update now that we are on the campaign trail. Is ODM leader Raila Odinga will be this day in Nyandarua County, specifically at Ol Kalou. This and so much more will be coming up as we proceed with our various broadcasts and news check right after Good Morning Kenya. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you a great day ahead.
Log on to the KBC website at www.kbc.co.ke to get the latest breaking news, entertainment, sports, politics, lifestyle or business trends from Kenya and around the world. Never miss new episodes from your favorite TV shows, reruns and movies. Just stream online or watch live on your YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1 TV shows. For the day's biggest stories, trustworthy news and family entertainment, log on to KBC Channel 1. Watch what you want anytime, anywhere.
Then do not let him find out. Otherwise, he'll be furious with you.
Hey, isn't there a double standard going on?
Since there will be many opportunities to work together, there's no need to rush.
I really don't know what I can do.
I trust you more than I trust myself even. You know me, right?
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. Next time I'll... Hey!
Just give me a call. You can work in the development center properly.
Don't wanna say goodbye now. That is something I just can't do, won't do. So I'm gonna let go. That is so good to me, and I scream out, yeah. Me coulda never make it without you. Me could never make it without you. Me coulda never make it without you.
There's no lie, no other guy can feel me man, love me woman in style. My man.
Welcome back to the program, and thank you so much for choosing Good Morning Kenya. Before we get on to the dailies, how about we take a quick look on how the roads are looking like this Tuesday morning? And as I mentioned to you, this is going to be our focus today. This is Likoni Road, and specifically that section between Jogoo Road and House of Manji. Initially, this contract, which was awarded from Kura, was actually a 900 million contract that was supposed to ensure the construction process of the entire 1.7 kilometer stretch of Likoni Road. Obviously, some areas have already been completed in terms of construction, key among them being this particular one as you leave the areas of bypass up until that particular section, House of Manji. So for now, we just want to look at the traffic flow on this particular stretch. But obviously today, the better part of this morning, when it comes to the traffic flow, I would be telling you why this particular project has stalled for a while, given the fact that it was supposed to be complete in terms of construction by March of 2021, after the construction process began in 2020 of September. That didn't happen because of reasons here and there, which, like I mentioned, I will be telling you all about that. But we just want to look at the traffic flow, also knowing fully well that this route is being used a lot by people residing from areas along Mombasa Road, and this is because of that expressway, which is clearly still taking shape on that stretch. So this is serving as a very good alternative route for those planning that specific area. So we can just begin from areas of the bypass. This is as you branch off through Airtel House or Airtel Center, coming to the city center via Likoni Road, branching through areas of Jogoo, Enterprise, House of Manji, throughout that entire section. This is how it is looking like this morning, so much as there's clearly a lot of ongoing road works, particular on that stretch that I've mentioned and which you're going to be looking at today. Still, there's really no heavy kind of traffic on this entire stretch as you come to the city center up until that mini roundabout as you get to branch off through Enterprise Road. So this entire stretch on both lanes specifically, meaning as you leave the bypass coming through Likoni Road and also leaving the roundabout, still through that entire section up until the bypass area, moving at a very swift pace. In fact, no traffic at all. So if you're leaving areas of Mombasa Road and do not want to make do with the heavy traffic as you get to areas of Capital Center, coming to the city center via the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and also sections of Uhuru Highway, you can clearly use this as your alternative route. That is how it is looking like this morning on that particular section. But as I mentioned, this is still going to be our focus today, and when we get to the second traffic link, I'll be giving you all the reasons as to why the particular project has stalled and also what Kura perhaps have mentioned when it's going to be complete in terms of construction.
All right, there we go. So we now want to move on to the next segment. We focus on what the papers have for us today. We are still using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. Our individual handles are at Victor Olo, at Dorina Range, and at Jane Womboy. I start you off with the Daily Nation. So busy today. So many stories have made their way on the front page. We start with politics, of course, and this one concerns the Nakuru senatorial seat aspirant Tabitha Karanja, who is the Keroche Brewery's CEO. Why she chose Ruto over Raila, and this is sort of something that most people do not expect given her relationship, her friendship with the former Premier Raila Odinga. That story has been captured here, and the main question is what changed? What made her decide to go with UDA as opposed to joining the Azimio bandwagon as most expected? I'll be giving you those details in a bit. Coming to some more politics, the main read here on the front page of the Daily Nation: big names on Azimio train. Big names on the Azimio train, and the strategy is basically based on Raila Odinga banking on the 2018 handshake with His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta and looking at the alliance, and they are moving with the spirit, gather all, come ye unto all. unto me, all of you. That's the philosophy that the two principals, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, are banking on, in line with just bringing up names and more parties into the coalition set to go against the deputy president once we get to the official polls on the 9th of August this year. But so far, they have about 13 parties that have joined the Azimio la Umoja team, and that is something that they're saying they still haven't confirmed how many more will be joining, but once everything is ready, they will be able to give the actual number. I'll be giving you details of that story in a bit. The other story here is concerning treatment when it comes to HIV and AIDS. And the question is, can you imagine a world without AIDS? Yes. Trials for a vaccine that uses the same technology as COVID does is currently underway. There's some human trials that are ongoing in the United States. I'll be giving you the particulars to this story in a bit, because I find it to be such a great step when it comes to the treatment of HIV and AIDS, which has been a global struggle for so many people for so many years now. And finally, former NSSF boss fined 2.4 billion for the shares scandal, and he was fined yesterday alongside 3 others, a total of 4, and they will be expected to pay about 4.8 billion Kenya shillings or face jail terms, which I'll be giving you the specifics in a bit. That is generally the front page of the Daily Nation for you this fine Tuesday morning. Victor.
Corruption is expensive, and you know, the wheel of justice might take a very long time, by the way.
Imagine ukipigwa fine ya 2.8 billion.
2.8 billion.
Juliba 1.4.
Yes. And then you look at...
It's a good lesson. Double.
Yes. And then you look at the time, the weight of the case. By then, the amount lost, 1.2 billion shillings. 1.4. Yes. Yeah. That was a lot of money way back then. And we all know the scheme, the fund, how many people depend on it. And yeah, it's also in this newspaper here, but let me go on the front page here. Raila battle plan to neutralize Mudavadi. Raila battle plan to neutralize Mudavadi. Oparanya says that they will hold rallies in Busia on Thursday and Bungoma on Friday. That is what's on the front page of the Star. And then there was an alleged terror attack yesterday in Mandera County, where 10 people were killed and 13 injured after a terrorist attack. And of course, you know, it's said that a vehicle, a public service vehicle, 14-seater Matatu, hit an IED in Mandera yesterday morning, and 10 people were confirmed dead and 13 of them got injured, and they're getting treatment in different hospitals in that particular region. Ex-NSSF manager fined 2.6 billion shillings or 14 years in jail. Jane has just handled that. It said that Muturi was accused of scheming to steal from the workers' fund through the purchase of shares. NSSF lost 1.2 billion shillings out of the undelivered shares that were to have been delivered between 2004 and 2007. So as it is, that's where the case is. Uhuru Ruto toughs trail in voter listing, something that we'll also be talking about later on. Mount Kenya has only hit 12% of target, while DP Backyard has registered an average of 8.55%. And by the way, if you've not taken your voter's card, go there and take that card. It's vital. So, according to the figures released by the IBC last evening, only the 10 counties of Mount Kenya region, including Nakuru, have registered a paltry 12% of their target as at the end of the second week of the mass voter registration. And says that the figures released by Chairman Wafula Chebukati shows that only 108,210 new voters have been netted in the 10 counties out of the target of 897,321 in the last 2 weeks of the exercise. We'll be having a discussion later on just to ascertain what exactly is happening. Okay, Kenya terror suspect, I want to go home from Guantanamo. Release approved after Abdul Malik held in the facility since 2007 for alleged terror links. He is scheduled to be released following a successful review of his case and charges by the Periodic Review Board, but a country must agree to have him. So on December 27th last year, the Periodic Review Board, which is composed of the senior officials from the U.S. Departments of Defense, Homeland Security, Justice, and National Intelligence, concluded Malik could be safely transferred to another country. It called for security assurances. Well, they say, first of all, your security is paramount to them. To them, he's still innocent. And you know what happened? He was jailed without any formal charges, and had not been on trial for 15 years. And finally, Raila's team fight black plan against Ruto and Mudavadi. Western Kenya bigwigs have launched a major offensive against the union between Deputy President William Ruto and ANC boss, that is Musalia Mudavadi. They are setting the stage for a major political battle in Western Kenya. The leaders pledge to quote-unquote bury Mudavadi and his Ford Kenya counterpart Moses Wetangula once and for all. And they said because they mortgaged the lawyer community to Ruto without their consent. At the meeting led by Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, CS Omalwa, and Atwoli, the leaders announced that they will commence rallies in the region beginning Thursday. The team will first comb Busia County and hold rallies in the border town and in the Teso region. On Friday, the team heads to Bungoma for what Governor Wycliffe Oparanya described as the mother of all rallies. And the rally in Bungoma will come just a week after Ruto, Mudavadi, and Wetangula held a similar event on the grounds. Interesting times ahead, politically speaking. Right? Right. Doreen.
All right, so let's come to the PD. And yesterday, as the report was being released by the Media Council of Kenya on best performing media houses, on the same breath, there was also a concern on how media houses are covering this year's election. And going by the statement of PS ICT, that is Esther Koimech, decried what she termed an emerging trend where media houses appear to be siding with some politicians and ignoring others, obviously urging media houses to be nonpartisan and to report without any form of biasness. Away from that, to some bit of politics. Will there be a storm brewing in the new formed alliance, Kenya Kwanza? That is the alliance formed between ANC, Ford Kenya, and UDA. Yesterday, as we're looking at what was happening on the papers, there was some bit of complaints, especially from UDA politicians there. This was after that rally that happened in Bungoma, whereby some of them were saying that a lot of focus and interest was being given to those allied to ANC when they went to that part of the country, the western side, as opposed to UD, and this is why they were urging the DP to step in and perhaps see how best he could solve that particular situation. So now the UDA chair, that is Johnston Muthama, is insisting that the party had and has not signed any coalition agreement with the two, that is Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula. And he even further on said that UDA will not pick a running mate based on tribe or region, as they're trying to eliminate any perception that a running mate must only come from a populous community. And he also went ahead to clarify what media reports, or what the media has been reporting, whereby the three political outfits had not formalized their unity, and urged UDA supporters to treat such reports as only rumors. So that only means that they're still in talks on obviously who will carry the day and which regions will field which kind of candidates there. And still, IBC getting to its last stretch of the second phase of voter listing, or if you may, voter registration. They're still saying they haven't yet reached their target, and this article highlights the counties that have registered the highest number of voters. Clearly, obviously, Nairobi forming that part or list of those registering the highest number of voters, and Lamu forming the list of counties with the least number of voters. Still on this last week, it's still urging Kenyans to come out and get registered as voters for the purpose of voting when it comes to August 9th. Just saying that they have managed to, when it came to the first phase, they only managed to register 1.5 out of the possible 6 million. And so far, remember that on this second phase,
Their target was 4.5 million Kenyans, and they say that they haven't yet reached that target. But also, when we get to the details, I'll be telling you what some of the reasons and factors as to why they haven't reached, because that particular article also highlights that. And state to legalize use of traditional medicine. This was just a statement given by the CAS Health, that is Rashid Aman, and he stated that the ministry is at an advanced stage of preparing a draft bill on traditional medicine to enable herbalists operate in accordance with the law, saying that the bill is not ready yet, but they're in the process of legalizing it. So that means that when it comes to traditional medicine and midwifery, it's going to be legal and operational in the country once that bill is passed. They're still on that stages of discussing and see how best they could also come with regulations when it comes to making it go to operation. And man feeds on raw meat for 78 days and counting. Oh yes, 78 days raw meat. This is chicken meat, chicken breast meat, there is cow meat, yet all forms of meat that you can imagine for strictly 78 days. And he has gone ahead to document this with a title, Quest of Eating Raw Meat Every Day Until I Die. That is actually a documentary he's documenting there of eating raw meat. And again, when we get the details, I'll be telling you why he's actually doing this, because I mean, these are just some of those bizarre incidents and bizarre stories. I mean, who will be eating raw meat and for 78 days and he's not even gotten ill or anything of that sort? And
wait, he's eating that meat deliberately, not as per the situation he's in?
No, it's deliberate. Raw meat.
Okay.
And he's documenting it. Bizarre stories. Lastly, Mama Ida apologizes over regulation of churches' remarks. This is after those remarks that he made in Kisumu during the NCCK event. And what she had said was that we want worshippers to get quality sermons that can only be achieved if the bishops and priests are well trained. Clearly, these sentiments did not sit well with church members as well as also church leaders, and this is why she was forced to apologize. But on the flip, she actually received backing from Atheist Society in Kenya, which demanded that churches not run by theologians should be abolished. But even at that, she went ahead to apologize for her sentiments. Jane.
I don't know about you guys, but I respect a leader who can actually apologize.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Just kubaling that, yo, I need to make a public apology.
But then you also realize
for what I said, accountability.
But again, you also realize saying sorry is not really an easy thing sometimes, depending on how you
in as much as some of the things they do, they are very inhumane or might go against the principles and values, but just taking that step to publicly apologize to the people for a statement that was misunderstood or misconstrued or misrepresented.
Yeah.
I respect that.
There is power in apology.
That's high level of maturity, we say?
Sure. And now that we all know who she is and all the political interest and what have you, an apology goes a long way.
It goes a long way.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take a very quick breather. We will be back to continue with all the goodness that we have lined up for you here on Good Morning Kenya. Stay with us.
I love it. All the goodness.
And everything. I know.
Wana hii mimba si yako?
Una siri wewe.
Jamani,
unafikiri sijui ulichokifanya?
Wajua hapa sisi tuendelea kupoteza muda na yule mtoto anaendelea kuteseka kule.
Sisi tunamhitaji zaidi kuliko vile anatuhitaji sisi.
Niko tayari kuchukua hatua ya kulipiza kisasi.
Divididos por una sombra de traición,
You're being pathetic, Santiago. I don't know why you're so jealous of your brother.
No, Father, I'm not jealous of my brother. If I'm telling you I want her to leave, it's because I have good reasons.
Hey, be careful with what you're about to say.
But the one thing I can't understand is why is everybody so crazy about that crass girl? Even my foolish brother.
Just think that in the long run, if you didn't break up with her, you would have hurt her worse, and you would have hurt yourself as well.
So what if I did? So do you want her to find out what went on between us? She might end up committing suicide.
Oh, come on, why would you do that?
Well, she is intense just like you.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
All right, welcome back to the program. So let's quickly look at how the roads are looking like, and perhaps I can just now run you through that on why this project has stalled for a bit since it being mentioned that it was supposed to be complete by March of 2021, which did happen. This is the section between Jogoo to House of Manji as you branch off to Enterprise Road, heading all the way to Mombasa Road. So what actually happened? Just basically from what you're seeing there, it meant they had to engage services of Kenya KPLC as well as Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company. This was for the purpose of relocating water pipes and this electric poles which are on the road. Just clearly from what you're seeing on this particular stretch, one among them is this one. So it only meant that they could not relocate them anyhow, but they had to engage those services for the purpose of proper relocation, which obviously has stalled the project a bit, because on this section where we have that, they elect some of those electric poles and water pipes is those sections where we need to have what we have here, that is an unmotorized transport system. Again, clearly you have noticed on most of roads that have either been earmarked for reconstruction, either undergoing this process of rehabilitation, like basically what is currently happening on this particular stretch. NMT has become key in trying to ensure that they put that in place, and this is just for proper designation of lanes. Clearly from this particular one, we can see the main section of the main road there being put aside for, or being set aside for vehicles, both public and private. What is still currently happening on this section, that is on the farthest end, because again, the entire stretch of Likoni Road is not complete in totality because of that motorized transport system, which is clearly taking shape, as well as that last phase of Likoni Road, which is being constructed. So this is why this morning we're looking at this particular stretch, the factors that have led to the project stalling a bit, as well as trying to see how all of this is affecting or impacting the traffic flow altogether. So away from this section, as you get to branch off through Enterprise Road, heading all the way to Mombasa Road, coming to the city center via Likoni, much as there's some ongoing roadworks on this stretch, this is how it is looking like. Still no traffic at all, moving at a very swift pace. This continues up until just before you get to Jogoo Road there. That entire stretch on both lanes of this road in between Jogoo Road and Bypass, given that that is the 1.7 kilometer stretch of Likoni Road, moving at a very swift pace this morning. So you can clearly use this as your alternative route if you're leaving areas of Mombasa Road perhaps and do not want to do the heavy traffic, especially on sections of Uhuru Highway, given the fact that the expressway is still continuing in terms of construction, moving at a very swift pace on both lanes of this particular stretch. That is how it it is looking like in terms of traffic this morning along the stretch of Likoni Road.
And welcome back. Now we are on People and Politics, and being the first day of February 2022, the voter registration exercise ends in, so to speak, 5 or 6 days' time, on 6th of this month. That is the date that was set by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And yesterday, according to the IEBC chair, Fletcher Bukati, the figures and the process is not all that good. The people who are targeted in this process generally are the youth. So are the youth responding to the whole process of voter registration? There is a bit of, people are a bit lethargic about this. So we want to find out why. And in studio, I'm joined by Ivy Wamboi Mushoki, who is a youth leader as well as an advocate in agribusiness. And she understands more on youth leadership. She has been an ambassador in so many platforms. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, let me start with you. Are you registered as a voter?
Yes, I am.
When were you registered?
Actually, I just did it earlier on this year, the beginning of January.
Yes.
And I believe it's actually the best thing we can do. Because, if young people don't come out to vote, then the next generation, we're going to all suffer. Let's just be honest, because our vote determines the next government.
Yes.
And the next government are the ones who are going to make the next 10 to 5 years worth of legislations that are going to affect the next coming generation. So if my urge to young people is that IEBC has really done so much with regards to helping and going out there and making us be aware of what is out there. So it's important to vote. It's our right. It's our right. It's the only way that you're able to declare, okay, fine, I'm going to vote for this person. This person has the best interest for me with regards to where I want to be in my future. And we are talking about young people not having access to jobs. Well, this is your time. If you vote for the right people, you'll have the right jobs. If you vote for the right people, you have the right healthcare system, the right opportunities are going to come to your way.
But you see, the so-called young people who we are talking about are the same people who are being targeted, and they're not going out there to take that document. When you walk around in almost all these registration centers, you'll find those officials sitting there, either one person or two people. What could be the reason?
For me, I believe that young people are kind of... politics has become a really dirty game. That's my opinion.
Yes.
So I feel, and I'm not trying to be biased with my information or my words.
Sure.
But I feel like young people also need to be enticed. We like nice things. We like nice things, and we like to be told what is the outcome. So for me, if I'm going to urge young people, you need to understand that voting is not just for the people out there. Your vote really counts. Because I'm talking, for example, I always like to look back at the story of Che Guevara. I don't know if you know him. He is the one who tried to create a kind of system that is, until today, Cuba. Actually, right now as we speak, they have free education from kindergarten all the way to university. They have free maternal health care for all the women, all the young people. If you reach the age of 18, you're paid by the government. So these are the systems that we are talking about by just voting. If young people just decide to stand up and start and realize that our vote, we're the next revolution, then we'll be able to actually
perhaps the same youth you're talking about are not eager to get this information, because when you ask someone, it's quite interesting to note that some of the people you're talking about who you're advocating for them to go and register as voters, the interest that they have in terms of the democratic play and the whole game democratically, they are not interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
It's true that democracy has actually played a very important role in Kenya. But at the same time, it's where everybody gets a chance to actually say something.
Yes.
You know, it's actually that gives everybody
and we're
a
enjoying
voice.
that space as a nation.
Yes, it's very beautiful. So I feel like if young people don't take advantage of this opportunity, we're going to end up maybe, let's say, in a wrong hands. And I'm not saying that anybody's in the wrong hands, but I am just saying that if you want to vote for the right government, the right leader, the person you feel has the best interest for you, then we need to actually go out there and just register. Because IBC was targeting 4.5 million voters.
Yes.
But currently we're at least at 500,000. That is not fair.
That's a very bad figure.
And I'm sure the IBC is looking onto the young people because we're the next generation for the next coming 10 years. So if we want to change the systems, we have to actually vote. So if anything, one thing I was discussing with our chairman, he was telling me that apparently we can be able even to vote from home.
Yeah.
There are systems that have been put into place, even if you're in school.
Currently in Kenya, we can't do that.
We can actually. The systems have been put into place.
Okay, you need to expound on that, because the last time we checked, you have to go physically to the polling station and vote. It's like we are not in other developed countries where you simply log into some website, register, key in your ID, and you're done.
Yes.
Here, it's manually. Amka 4, end queue, and you're done. How is it done that somebody can vote remotely from home?
So in Huduma Center, they have kits that they've put in place that IBC have put into place, and even in schools. So it just depends on what you want to do. So you just go to the Huduma Center, tell them I want to register, and I'll be able to vote from home. So these are the kind of priorities that IBC has given to people, especially if they're not able, because you know COVID has really messed around a lot of people's affairs. So I feel it's a really good system. So young people, you don't even need to just go there and make a line. As long as you've registered with the Huduma Center or even in the schools. So these are the kind of kits that have been put. There are kits that have been put there specifically for voter registration.
You're so passionate about youth and advocacy.
Yes.
What pushes you?
For me, I feel like I've had a very good mentor. She has actually mentored me for the past 6 years with regards to youth in agribusiness. I advocate for young people in agribusiness because I feel agribusiness is the future. It's where we're going to make the most money.
We all depend on agriculture.
Yeah, and it's where we eat. I mean, every morning right now as we speak, we're just thinking about coffee.
Yes.
We're thinking about what are we going to have, the bread, the next meal. So I feel like if we don't advocate for the young people in agribusiness and where they're going to get their next jobs, then I'm not doing the right thing. So my advocacy is more of passion, and it's also more of with regards to what I feel the young people need to look at.
When you walk out there, what's the response when you look at the faces of the young people and you advocate and to push them to take role and take their place in the democratic space that we enjoy right now? What is their response?
So young people, personally, I feel like they're still not sure that
a lot.
They're not sure. There's so much uncertainty. They're so frail because they don't understand, you know, if I do this, are they going to take advantage of me? Is it really going to help me? But for one thing I can be sure is that I'm really proud of the space that young people are taking up. As we speak, there's so many young aspirants on the table. So it's like it's a takeover. It's like young people are realizing, okay, if I don't do this, then nobody else is going to do it for me. So I'm liking that kind of zeal and energy that the young people are having. Because if we don't take up these positions, then we're not going to make the change that we want to see for the next generation.
But you see, Ivy, you know, that bracket is a very interesting bracket.
Yes.
That age group, their interest is completely on different things.
Yes.
Somebody will say, why would I take part or in an election, or why would I go and register as a voter? And their interest is completely different. You ask someone, have you taken your voter's card? I didn't know. I just don't want to vote. You ask them, what is the reason? Staki tu. What are these stuck to? You know, because I need to understand why these stuck to. When you interact with the youth out there, perhaps you poke into their minds and you understand the reasons why they're not interested in voting. What are some of the reasons that they give out there?
Okay, for one, young people are just tired of being lied to. I'm being honest, and I know maybe my words might be a bit, you know, and I feel like, you know, that's why politicians, as we speak, young people are now trying to take over their spaces, because they're saying, you know, we're tired of people telling us what we want to hear. We want to be the ones to say what we want to be heard. So if anything, what I hear out there is that they don't even understand what their vote counts for. So, for example, young people don't know that their vote counts for their health system. Their vote also counts for, with regards to even if more job opportunities, getting reimbursements, getting some little stipends even from the government. You know, these are the systems that your vote counts for. So I feel like there's a miscommunication somewhere that young people don't understand what their vote counts for.
Perhaps you can blame our leaders or relevant authorities because of lack of civic education. Because if you don't educate someone, they'll not learn. So civic education plays a key role here.
Because, you know, information is power. The more information you diverse to the community around you, the more people are able to understand. So I feel like if we're able to just get those young leaders in the communities, within the communities, give them the aspect of this civic education, train them, make them understand what it means to vote, they will now go disperse the information towards their communities, teach their communities. So this is what your vote means. This is what happens when you vote for the right person. This is how we are able to get the numbers. So
that information is not getting down there correctly.
Because of the you know how information trickles down to the mwananchi on the ground. I feel it's very important. So how is it that we can actually do a statistics on how we can reach to these young leaders? And I know there are many, you know, they might not be in the government, but there are those ones who, those people in the community listen. They listen to them. They listen to them because they know that they have an ear. They have a way with the people. So we need to really reach out to these young leaders, get to understand what is their backgrounds and how they can be able to demystify this information towards their communities around them. That is how we'll get these numbers up.
The figures which was released yesterday by the IEBC shows a very grim picture. And perhaps, you know, just 5 days away, I don't think they're going to hit that target.
Actually, I'm very worried because I don't even understand. I think we should even be given more time.
It should be a continuous process as per the law.
It should be, but those numbers are very worrying, and it means that young people or the people who are supposed to be reached out are seeing that voting is not necessary. And yet it's very important because your vote is you're trying to set a pace for the next 5 years. So what is going to happen for the next 5 years if you don't vote? Then that means the things that you wanted to get, you won't get them.
In fact, they say that bad leaders are chosen or elected by good people who just decided not to vote.
Exactly. You just sat home and then you watch, and then you'll be complaining, oh, we don't have this, oh, we don't have that. Yet you sat down, and instead of being part of the electoral process, being part of the change that is to come, then that's how you'll know that the future is bright. If you don't vote, then the future is not bright. So don't sit down and complain if you know you didn't vote.
You know, it's like someone is telling you, you let someone cook that food. Sit in the kitchen. You've not taken any part. Hata kitungu ya 5 bob hujajunua, and then later on unasema hii chakula ni mbaya. This food is all sweet. Ama you didn't even participate in the process of making that food until you get it on the table. But then, you know, when you look at in terms of the demographic, IBC said that so far certain counties are leading, and perhaps at the end of the day they needed more time, which has been given to them again. But some people are saying that they're not accessing these kits because either they're far away from them, accessibility is a problem in terms of terrain and what have you. Perhaps what can be done to change the whole of this so that accessibility is easy for the youth and generally public to register as voters?
First of all, I feel like young people, they really like things that za kuchangamsha. See,
I know.
Yeah, so if we can be able to bring like musicians, artists and what have you into the place so that they can be able to rally them. Oh, there's a concert here, but as that concert is happening, you net them with the IBC that is happening, the voter registration. So they'll just be before you enter the concert, you end up registering over there, then you enter into the concert.
But Ivy, that sounds so it kind of entertainment, but in real sense, the whole process of voter registration is quite tedious.
Yes, it is.
And getting the funds, IBC has been fighting with the Treasury, national government. We need this and that.
Yes.
The logistics, you have to hire choppers, far-flung areas. And then you can imagine you want to bring a caravan of entertainment somewhere deep in West Pokot, in Kapengura, or part of northeastern part of Kenya.
Yes.
It just boils down to that personal responsibility.
Yes, it does.
So youths are just okay with okay.
No, I wouldn't say they're okay with okay.
Yes.
I feel like there's so much going on with the young people, especially right now with regards to mental health. I've really seen it's actually a big problem towards our age bracket.
Yeah.
But what I feel like we should really urge the young people is that during this time, especially this period, this year 2022, it's an year of restoration. That's what I always say. It's an year that we get to change a lot of things that we didn't like in the past decade. So if we want change, especially with regards to our mental stability, our physical, we need to urge the young people that this vote is going to change that. We're going into a technological world. So we also need to understand that young people are not thinking the way they used to think before.
Absolutely.
We're thinking about innovation, technology. How do I do this? How do I do that? And the only way to make this into part of the systems of the government is by taking that vote. And that vote really matters.
There's something you said which is quite interesting, that there is a voting system that someone can vote from home.
Yes.
So think about this way. What if, my idea or suggestion, what if IBC made it so easy? Because you will realize that most of the young people right now can access smartphones.
Exactly.
So at the comfort of their homes, simply log in and vote, and you're boom, done.
Yes.
When you tell someone, voting starts at 3 a.m., you have to go and queue at 3 a.m. Like, 3 a.m.?
Yeah. The tediousness.
And then unasema mpaka sangapi, like, hey boss, sometimes mpaka 5.
Definitely.
Mi siwezi. It's just that ability to transform and move with the trend.
It's true.
Is that happening?
I feel like that's where we're heading into. And as I said, our chairman is really working day in and day night. And I don't know if you know him. He's a very young person, and I'm really liking the energy.
Shout out.
Joel.
All right.
He's a really good chairman for IBC, and he's really young. And I was really engaging and telling him, wow, really systems are changing. Young people should actually know that it's no longer the way things used to be before. We are actually looking at brighter ways, dedicated ways, and innovative ways to engage the youth. So it's something that I feel like instead of you thinking about how to go and make that line, go and apply in Huduma Center, or go and in the schools if you're in university or whatever, they'll actually explain for you the processes, and you'll be so shocked by what things IBC is doing.
Ivy, old habits die hard.
Yes.
As a country, I think there's some systems which can be hacked. People hack bank accounts.
Yes.
People hack ATMs and what have you.
Yes.
Okay. We perhaps just need to get accounts with the old ways of as a country, how we used to do things.
True.
And just accept that we are in an electioneering period, and on 9th of August we are going to vote. So perhaps before such systems are put into place, then it means that we just have to go back to the old system of voting, wake up, queue, and go home. The moment you see a young person not taking part in electronic in a democratic process, how does that make you feel?
First of all, I feel sad because I feel like that person doesn't know what that vote is for. They've not yet been sensitized on what that vote means. And that's why I'm saying, as our leaders and even our aspirants go down onto the ground and tell their voters, oh, I need your vote, they should actually explain what this vote means. They should explain that at the end of the day, this vote is your life. It's not just any other person. It's your individual life. If you want change, you have to make it yourself. You have to stand up, go and do the dirty work yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like the information that's been disseminated is not being well disseminated.
Who stands to lose and gain in the whole of this process?
I think we do.
We do as a nation? Especially
we do. We do. Because if we don't vote, because now I'm seeing the change of, we are actually changing the shift, our age bracket. For example, I'm not going to say my age, but
it's okay.
I'm between that age of, I'm between that age of, 25, 28 there. And I feel like this age of ours until 35, for the next coming decade, we're the next generation.
Yeah.
So if we don't make these processes that we are doing, this electoral system that now we're starting to vote, then it's our children who are going to suffer.
Or even us later on, because all the legislations taking place, all the leaders that we pick today, because youth, you will not stay young for life.
True.
Okay? Those leaders you think are all right now, at some point they were also young, just like you. Definitely. And they took that risk to vie, to vote, and to take part in all these democratic processes. And here they are. So whatever choice you make today is going to affect you tomorrow.
Yes.
Perhaps that's what we don't understand.
I feel like if I'm to conclude and just to say that today is never determined. But if you make a decision today, it can determine tomorrow.
Sure.
I don't know if I've made sense there.
Yes, you have.
You can't know what is going to happen when you wake up in the morning, but if the steps and the plans that you make today can help you know what to do tomorrow. So all I'm urging young people is that this is your democratic right.
Right.
As a democratic state, this is your democratic right to vote, to understand the rules, the regulations, and how the systems are working makes you understand what the future will look like. So as an agribusiness advocate, for the young people, especially wale wakulima weko kwa shamba, we are actually asking for, more subsidies on the ground, more seedlings, more what. This vote helps to actually, you'll get those things once you vote, because the leaders that will come, they'll come through that vote, and everything that you're asking for, the farm inputs and everything will come through this vote. So all I'm asking is that young people see the future. Don't see now, see tomorrow.
Yeah. In fact, most of the leaders are saying that when elected, they'll be subsidizing, the price of fertilizer.
Exactly.
Because in Kenya, agriculture is our backbone. We depend on agriculture, and that's it. Are the youth getting dirty? Do they go to the shamba? Do they actually embrace agribusiness?
For one, I'm really liking the trend of agribusiness. We're not now talking about the old systems. Now we have things like hydroponics. Hydroponics.
Okay.
This is like...
Explain to Jen. Jen has just looked at me like hydroponics. Okay.
So hydroponics is a system in which you don't need to actually go on the ground with the soil. It's soilless. It's a soilless system of growing food.
Ivy, you can't say that.
Yes.
How do you grow food?
It's a soilless system. You don't use the soil from the ground. You use like coconut pit, a kind of manure that can be able to grow this food, and it grows luxuriously, and it tastes so much better than even when you grow it on the ground.
You know what?
Yes.
Mr. Lo is not looking at this. Because kulima is at 4 a.m. You wake up, shika jembe, go, lima. That's it.
But now they are monitoring systems. They're monitoring systems. You can even be able to monitor your produce from on your phone.
Yeah.
Because of the systems that now are being brought. We have machineries now that are able to harvest on your behalf. You don't need to now go with a jembe. There are so many machineries that we even have that, as someone who's been even doing a lot of international travels to China, this is the work that I go to check. I go to check on those machineries so that they can be able to come down to somewhere like Kenya or Africa, so that we can give our young people and show them that agribusiness doesn't need to be tiresome.
Yeah.
You can add value. There's also the aspect of value addition.
That sounds so promising, but in our current state as a nation, I think we're too far from hitting.
No, we're not far. Actually, I feel like we're actually doing the most when it comes to this. For example, you know, an institution known as KIRDI, Kenya Institute of Research and Development. That is where we are actually training our young people to understand the aspect of value addition. If you want to, for example, make something like tomato sauce, you can go register with KIRDI. KIRDI will train you, you get the certification from KEBS, and then you start to even sell your products locally or internationally. So I feel like young people need to just look at means in which to just, you know, kupenya huko ndani, which one, what is exactly do you want? What do you feel can make more money? Because value addition is the future.
Okay, there's this bit of value addition, and you have to make money as well as a station.
Yes.
And on that note, let's just take a break.
Okay.
Alafu tutarudi. Leo tunaongea mambo ya agribusiness, voter registration, and the youth.
Yes.
Interesting. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
Then do not let him find out. Otherwise, he'll be furious with you.
Hey, isn't there a double standard going on?
Since there will be many opportunities to work together, there's no need to rush.
I really don't know what I can do.
I trust you more than I trust myself even. You know me, right?
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. Next time I'll... Hey!
Just give me a call. We can work in the development center properly.
You're being pathetic, Santiago. I don't know why you're so jealous of your brother.
No, Father, I'm not jealous of my brother. If I'm telling you I want her to leave, it's because I have good reasons.
Hey, be careful with what you're about to say.
But the one thing I can't understand is why. Why is everybody so crazy about that crass girl? Even my foolish brother.
Just think that in the long run, if you didn't break up with her, you would have hurt her worse, and you would have hurt yourself as well.
So what if I did? So do you want her to find out what went on between us? She might end up committing suicide.
Oh, come on, why would you do that?
Well, she is intense just like you.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Okay. And welcome back, still on People and Politics, and today we are moving slightly different from the politics that we talk about, and we want to know the reason why you need to participate in an in a democratic process, because without elections, without voters card, all this will make no sense. And Ivy is still with me here in studio. Before we took a break, we were talking about value addition and issues to do with agribusiness. And, you know, agriculture is the backbone of our nation.
Yes.
When you look at the issue of Galana Kulalo,
yes,
the white elephant,
yes,
the government had this ambition, the vision, and the program was to sustain our breadbasket in terms of agriculture, but that just went down the drain.
I agree. It did go down the drain. But this is a very sensitive topic, and I don't want to, like, you know, dive so much into it.
It's in the public domain. Yes.
But I do know that it's still being worked on, and I believe that the future is very bright, especially with regards to the irrigation systems that are being put into place.
Yeah.
So it's going to be one of a very important space once it works out, it's going to be even like where young people even can be going to see what exactly it means to actually have an irrigation scheme that actually works and feeds thousands and thousands of people. Because I feel like if it works, then we can give hope to the young people who are out there. Because I don't want to put a negative aspect on it. I know it's not working out in the proper sense, but I believe that the government has good intentions for it, because it can't just go down the drain like that. A project can't have just been put into the ground and already sedimented, money was put into it, and for it to fail. I believe that the right systems and the right people are going to come, take over the project and help it to elevate it so that young people can see it as a way in which it can become the next, you know, the next means to an end to actually feeding the next generation.
You know, around 2-3 days ago, in a group of, you know, friends, just, you know, having some good time over the weekend, one of us is in business, and he said, you know, I'm just in this business because I don't have a job.
Wow.
I'm in this business because I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And the business, he's doing the men clothes, the shoes, and all that. But their answer was, you know, me niko kwa hii job, nafanya tu biashara because sina job. Guys are like, hey, guy, you are making a big mistake, because most you think that for you to have a job, you must be in a tie, wake up 8 to 5. Now that's a job. It's just a change of mindset that we still don't have. That even as much as the government is saying that, you know, we have to go to school, the whole idea of having CBC is to equip us with the right, you know, tools for us to work, even without white-collar job. But is that what's happening out there?
One, I feel like young people are also tired of going to the 8 to 5 jobs. Young people are becoming more innovative in how they're creating for themselves jobs. I'm seeing a lot of trending. I'm seeing a lot of young people becoming their own CEOs. For example, I look up to this girl called Ogutu. She just got Forbes under 30, and she's very young. And if you look at her, she's actually in the oil space. Oil. Who would have thought that a young woman would actually have created an environment or a company in where she's advocating for women in the oil sector? It's young people are tired. Let me just tell you the truth. They're tired of actually being told what to do, in quote unquote. Quote unquote. So they want to make systems that actually work for them. So, for example, I actually run a company where, as much as I'm also an advocate, I have my own agribusiness company. And I do value addition of dried fruits, herbal teas, and juices. And I've employed about 5 to 6, 7 employees. That's
employment created for someone.
You see. So where we are going, there's not enough white-collar jobs for young people. There's not enough white-collar jobs. But if we can tap into the spaces that are already there and see, okay, fine, I'm good at computer science, I'm good at computer IT, what can I do to create a chain of people who are interested in what I'm doing? There's this thing called cryptocurrency. I'm not even sure how it's running, but I feel like it's the one that's taking over right now. So how is it that we can engage young people? What is this cryptocurrency? How can I tap into it? Is it the future? Can I make a little bit of money from here? Can I train young people on how to do this cryptocurrency and create a booming, you know, ripple effect? So these are the things that young people are starting to look at, especially during this COVID times. I feel like it's given young people a space and an opportunity to actually see, what is it I can do even when I'm still in the house? There's been even young people are even making their own, for example, there's this lady, especially that I normally buy from, but the dawa. You know, everybody now was looking for the ginger and the what have you. So now she actually created a whole company. Now she distributes up to 5 liters of dawa, and it's very good, very well sedimented, very well, you know, it's kept, packaged. And I'm just saying, these are ways in which young people are now starting to look how to make money for themselves on the side.
So it's an opportunity that we don't have.
It's a very big opportunity, very big.
And you know, when you talk about opportunities and the youth out there trying to get, you know, their space and to earn a living, sometimes it needs a very small spark of motivation and direction and mentorship. Perhaps this is what the youth are lacking.
I believe that for us, especially the young people, without mentorship, you will go far. I personally am still being mentored, and I'm still looking for more mentors, because at the end of the day, wisdom comes from those who have already lived the life before you. So in order for us to move forward, we need to look at the past. You can't ignore you can't ignore going forward without looking at the history. The history determines the future. So what happened in the past, maybe that went wrong or right, you have to know so that you can make the right decisions going forward. So for me, I just believe that this government, especially during this IEBC time, this vote will actually help to even know if the next generation will be able to be mentored by the right people. Just recently, we were having a conversation by our PS of industrialization, and he was really receptive to our conversation. He was really receptive to listening to what the young people had to say. And I'm just saying that these are also the mentors that we also want to see in the next government. Because, you know, you need, as a young person, you want someone to just listen to you. I'm having a problem on this. You need someone to tell you, okay, Ivy, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what you're doing right. And this is what I feel that you'll do best going forward.
And perhaps that's why most youth are plunging into politics.
Exactly. You see, and I'm feeling like politics is actually becoming a space in which young people feel they can air out their voices. Especially with regards, and I still continue mentioning this aspect, a lot of young people are going through mental health issues, and it's not because that they want to go through, it's because they don't know what to do going forward. There's so much, it's like a whole hullabaloo of things going on that they don't even understand. What should I do going forward? Am I making the right steps? Am I doing the right thing? So with this vote will actually determine the next leaders, the next mentors, and the next revolution of young people.
So in other words, the older generation should hold the hands of the young people and walk with them and give them the guidance in some of these processes. Perhaps a majority of people are going to vote for the first time. They have no idea what it means. The whole process. For them, they just go take your voter's card and get ready to vote on August 9th. It takes me back on what I talked about mentorship, but then now, some people would say that most young people are obsessed with quick money. You wake up in the morning, you have your everything done by evening, you're a millionaire somewhere in account, no names touched here. But perhaps that is what's in the mind of a youth. We don't want to believe in the process.
One thing that my mentors keep telling me, that processes are the ones that are going to determine where you go. So you can't skip the processes. The processes determine, and also the processes determine your patience. They determine even the level of which, once you reach there, how far you'll have gotten through these processes. So you can't skip the processes. You can never skip processes.
It's like you want to skip the process of growing up. You're born today and then the next minute you're old.
I know, and especially as young people, you want fast things, everything. You want to see results today. But let me tell you something. Even as I'm going to quote from the Bible, when Moses was taking the people from Canaan, there was a process that had to go through before he actually reached Canaan. There was a process. And those are the processes that young people need to believe. That in order for you to reach somewhere, you need to take your time, understand, evaluate your situation, evaluate your character, evaluate who you are as a person. So by the time you reach there, you even have time even to mentor now the next coming generation. Because that's what it is. It's generations and generations to come. So you need to understand, what is it that I'm doing wrong? And if I'm doing it wrong, how am I doing it? And if even though I'm doing it right, is this going to affect someone on the right? Is it going to affect someone here? And how am I evaluating it? These are the questions that need to go through. So these are the processes that we really need to take advantage of, and we need to understand good things take time.
Good things take time. You've touched on a very salient positive point there, because when you look at the processes that we have right now, there's that issue of quick fix. You want it right now, and that's how you want it. The even patience is a virtue.
Yes.
Patience is a virtue. But if you don't practice it, then that's the moment we're still getting into the issues of mental illness you're talking about.
Yes.
It's something that we even discussed here as a station.
Yes.
You know, the mental health is an issue that everyone at some point is affected in one way or another.
Yes.
But some of these things can be controlled.
Yes.
Only if we get the right processes, we hit the right buttons and talk to the right people and do the right thing.
Yes. And especially right now, young people, I feel, are everywhere. You're not targeted, you're not focused. I'm also someone, I'm also not saying that I'm also very focused at everything, but I'm learning. You know, learning is a process, just as the way you're talking about processes. You learn and you get better each and every day. So if young people can actually take their time, get a roadmap, understand who do I want to be in the next 5 years? And in those 5 years, understand the processes. Get to have someone who can even take you through these processes. Learning, getting to understand, even to give you, to regulate you and to enter you into these spaces that you're not wary very wary about. Getting to understand this people who, you know, have already been in the space. So young people, I feel like I will advocate and I will emphasize that if we don't take our time to do things, and even now, if we don't take opportunity to even take our vote, then we won't understand the processes, we won't understand what it means to even do this. We will just be, you know, so confused everywhere, always wanting this, this and that. But if you have a target, if you have a mindset, if you have a focus and a drive on where you want to be, then you'll understand how the processes take place.
Directors, did you hear that in the gallery? Thank you.
Okay.
Let's talk about youth and politics, and leadership as well. Most of the young people, I've hosted a couple of them here, who want to get into the political scene, either for the first time or some of them are vying for a second time, but a majority of them are getting to politics for the first time. What do you think is driving the youth and the young people generally into politics?
Change. They want change. And since maybe they believe the leaders that were there before are not giving them the change they want, they want to drive the change themselves. And I'm still going to emphasize about Cuba. It's a country that I always look up to, because the things that are, even though they are not economically in a good state, the kind of healthcare system in Cuba right now, do you know we are importing doctors from Cuba?
We have them here
because of the systems that they put into place during the voting process, during their elections. They actually demanded for good leaders, and they were given it to them. It was given unto them. Right now, the government of Cuba supports all the young people to do anything that they want. If you're a young person at the age of 18, the government actually pays you until you even get a job. These are the type of processes that we're actually looking for our young people. If our young people just come together, if we just come together, because we're about 60 to 70%.
Yes, with the total population.
It's a very important target. If we just come together and understand what we want, then we'll be the voice of everybody.
But the level playing field, is not so easy for the youth. It's rough. Because you can imagine somebody wants to get into politics and the first question is, sina pesa.
Exactly. Because of course you're also looking for resources. I have a couple of friends who are also vying for maybe MCAs, women reps and what have you. They're really having a hard time. But wanajitolea. They're actually unajitolea. You can see their effort. You can see their, you know, their cry to just want change for the next generation. Especially with regards to health, because you know now health is becoming such a need. It's not even no more a want. It's a need because you know
it's a necessity.
COVID came at a point where nobody was ready. Nobody was ready for it. We didn't even know what we were going to do. People are being told to stay in their houses. You know, it came at such an alarming rate. So if young people can see that these are very, very critical times. Times that we are not, anything can happen. So we need to be on top of our toes just to understand what exactly is happening in this era. how is it we can change the next generation, how we are doing the next things, you know. It's very important. It's a very critical time, and I'm very worried about us youth, especially right now. If we are only at 500,000 on the voting, on our registration, then young people they're lacking information. They don't know what exactly is happening.
Can one, for example, a youth get into a political seat without millions of shillings to campaign? Is it possible?
Yes, with the right target market, with the right processes and the right people behind them.
Okay.
I know you'll need a little bit of, you know, funds here and there to mobilize, to do all this kind of things. But at the end of the day, how your strategy, you know, I always say strategy is key. Strategy is how you're able to target and to understand your niche and where you're targeting. If you understand your strategy, if you understand who exactly you're targeting and the people, then you'll take that thing in the morning. In the morning. You won't even need to, you'll just be sitting down and waiting. In fact, you'll be asleep even.
I like the way you put it, make it so easy. Then you take that thing in the morning. Most of the politicians and the aspirants I talk to say that the only thing that they suffer from is the emotional drain they get from politics, because it's not even the financial bit of it, it's the emotional torture they get, because you feel like you've done so little and time is running out. So you have to be emotionally stable, physically stable, and spiritually stable as well, because in politics everything can go south at any given point. Allow me to ask you this question. Most youths are getting to politics because they want to get rich, not because of leadership. So this negates that aspect of change.
For me, I always believe that it also depends on your character and who you are as an individual, and what your values. What do you want to be seen as as you grow and keep going forward? Yes, there's that notification that young people feel like once you enter into politics, you become rich. But I don't believe that's really the case, because if we have that kind of notion that getting into politics, you'll just become rich, just like that, then what happens to our next generation? If that's how we are thinking, then won't they even think worse than us?
Personal interest.
You know? So I'm just feeling like it also depends
never make it without you. There's no lie, no other guy can feel me man, love me woman in style. My man, tell him I'm a king, everything when me give up to him. My man, put the jump to the bass and they know how to ride the rhythm. My man.
Then do not let him find out. Otherwise, he'll be furious with you.
Hey, isn't there a double standard going on?
Since there will be many opportunities to work together, there's no need to rush.
I really don't know what I can do.
I trust you more than I trust myself even. You know me, right?
I'm disappointed in you. I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. Next time I'll... Hey!
Just give me a call. We can work in the development center properly.
Welcome back to the program and many thanks for staying with us. This is still Good Morning Kenya. If you're just joining us, you're right in time for our second conversation this Tuesday morning. Our focus being on restoration and conservation of wetlands here in the country. Remember that this is actually an annual event that takes place every year on the 2nd of February. The whole idea and agenda of restoring, conserving and also trying to understand the vital role that wetlands get to play for us as people as well as the entire planet. And my guest this morning will be talking to us all about this, as well as tomorrow's event, which will be happening or taking place at Ondiri in Kikuyu area. My guest is Mr. Stephen Katua. He is the head of ecosystem management at NEMA. Thank you very much, sir, for making time this morning.
Thank you very much, Doreen.
All right. Before I get to the whole idea of restoration, conservation, let's start from the basics. Like I mentioned earlier, this is actually an annual event, meaning it began from way back. But there's a history behind when it comes to restoration and conservation of wetlands as a whole. Talk to us about that.
Thank you very much, Doreen, for inviting me to this very important meeting.
Yeah.
I think, as you have mentioned, tomorrow the global community is celebrating World Wetlands Day. This is commemorated in practically all the countries of the world, and the aim is to raise awareness on the value of wetland ecosystems among the public and among all the other stakeholders. Now, this is very critical because wetlands happen to be among the most important ecosystems we have in the country. Wetlands, as you can tell from the name, wet and lands, it means, or it implies areas that have a very close relationship between land and water. So it's a very broad range of ecosystems. And I just want to give you maybe some examples.
Yes.
We have our lakes. We have lakes, of course, you have Lake Baringo, Lake Naivasha, Lake Olbolosat, all those lakes, isn't it? We have our dams. We have our riverine wetlands linked with the rivers. We have our marshes. We have our swamps. And we even have wetland ecosystems in the coast, such as the deltas, for example, Tana Delta, the estuaries, like Sabaki Estuary. And we also have our coral reefs. And now a lot of people, maybe like in Nairobi and so on, when it comes to December, maybe the holiday period, you go to Mombasa. And some of you visit our coral reefs and visit what you call seagrass ecosystems and even the mangroves. So those are all wetland ecosystems. Of course, as a country, what I want to mention is that almost 80% of Kenya is arid or semi-arid. And that means wetlands are the only permanent source of water in these arid areas. And that means they're actually the source of livelihood or they actually sustain life in these areas that are actually arid. Our livestock, get their water from wetlands, what you call livestock watering. We get our water for domestic use. Our mothers and, people in the rural areas get their water from the wetlands. Our wildlife depend on wetlands for their sustenance. And that means it's very critical, I think, for us in government, but also for all the other stakeholders to come together to conserve these ecosystems and ensure that their resources are used wisely. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of this arid and semi-arid areas, and also just mentioning a few examples like areas of Machakos and Taita Taveta counties, is lack of proper, perhaps, conservation of wetlands part of the reasons as to why most of these areas still remain dry, or there are various other factors that result to that?
Maybe just to mention that, of course, you have so many factors that lead to reduction in water levels in these ecosystems. So, for example, if you look at the Athi River ecosystem, of course, which traverses Machakos and Taita Taveta County, among other counties, you find that in terms of reduction of water, there are actually various causes. One of them could be the issue of abstraction of water by our farmers. Of course, farmers need water to grow their crops and to sustain the animals. But I think at times you find that in some of these remote areas, that abstraction is not fully controlled. Of course, we have arms of government such as WRA and so on, which are doing a very good job in terms of that. But you find that some of these farms might fall outside of those of that regulation regime. And that ends up in over-abstraction of water. So that is one cause for reduction of water levels. Of course, we've also had quite a bit of deforestation. Because of course, you know that our mountains, our hills, are really the water catchment areas. And even some of the wetland ecosystems found upstream. And once you remove the trees and so on, then that also it reduces the amount of water that ends up in the rivers. But of course, the government has done a lot of work, which is very commendable, in terms of partnering with the local community and other stakeholders in enhancing afforestation in order to restore some of these degraded areas.
All right, when you talk about the importance or benefits of this wetlands area, of course you've mentioned source of water, and I'd want Kenyans to really understand why it becomes very important to conserve these areas. Aside from it being a source of water, perhaps you can also expound further how it being a source of water is, what other benefits or advantages are there when it comes to why we need to be protecting and conserving wetland areas?
Okay, I think Doreen, as you've rightly pointed out, I think nationally, the most important value of wetland ecosystems is as sources of water, isn't it? During the wet seasons, and especially during the dry seasons, isn't it? When there are only sources of water. But wetlands have many more functions. Again, I want to turn to our rural areas and mention that, of course, when it comes to issues such as livelihoods for the community, For example, in aspects such as food, you find our fish and other food sources actually come from these wetland ecosystems, isn't it? Yes. The crops that we grow, horticultural crops and so on, a lot of them are grown from these wetland ecosystems, or they are grown with water that is harvested from these wetland ecosystems. And that means in terms of food production, in terms of sustenance, that all comes from wetland ecosystems. Now, if you look at our traditional houses that we built all across the country, which are still prevalent, I think, in most parts of the country, you'll find that the walls are actually built with clay. You remember those huts?
Yes, in the rural
I think you've seen some of them, isn't it? That is clay, isn't it? The thatch is made of various types of grasses. And the poles actually come from either wetlands or forest ecosystems. So if you look at all those materials, again, those are derived from wetland ecosystems. Yeah, so I think in most of parts of the country, there's a very close interaction between the local communities and wetlands. And without wetlands, as I mentioned, there's no sustenance, there's no livelihood, and there's no life.
Okay.
Yeah, now, of course, in terms of animals, we also have our wildlife. We have, our elephants, our lions, and so on, isn't it? You go to our parks and so on, isn't it? Where do these animals get their water from? It's wetlands, wetland ecosystems, isn't it? Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really the source of life, I think, for ourselves and our animals.
Okay, so then it clearly means that when you talk about conservation of wetlands, it's actually holistic. There's a lot to talk about aside from it just being a source of water.
Yes.
All right. Now let's come to your role as a department. I mean, clearly as the head of ecosystems at the department at NEMA, yes, creation of awareness is important, and that is the first step we begin with. But what more are you doing when it comes to the conservation of these areas? Because just from what you've explained, there's a lot that we get to benefit from as a people from these areas, or what we call the wetlands.
Just to mention that, of course, as NEMA, we are really the authority when it comes to management of the environment in the country. And of course, wetlands are part of the environment.
Yes.
So I think our role is basically coordinative to bring in various players, from our sister government agencies, what you call the lead agencies, from the parastatal organizations, from institutions of higher learning, institutions of research, from our CBOs, NGOs, private sector, the local community, to bring all of them together to come up with or to agree on measures to conserve these kind of ecosystems. Now our approach is twofold. We use what you call the carrot and stick approach. Of course, when it comes to the carrot approach, our principal focus is on creating and enhancing public awareness on the value of these ecosystems. So we do a lot of awareness creation. Then we even have a department in charge of awareness and education. And I think the aim is to promote awareness on the need to conserve the environment, of course, including wetland ecosystems. But of course, just to mention that, of course, as NEMA, we also have the carrot. We are formed and mandated to carry out activities by a very strong act of government. One of the strongest acts that we have in the country, which is called EMCA, 1999. And that's the environment law, isn't it? And the law itself has various prescriptions that it identifies various prescriptions to manage these wetland ecosystems. It also gives guidance on activities that should be carried out, around wetland ecosystems, and those that should be prohibited around these ecosystems. So, for example, when it comes to issues such as I mentioned about the livestock drinking water from our wetlands, our wildlife, water for domestic use and so on, of course, naturally, that's a permitted use. But of course, there has to be an element of control to ensure that these water sources are not depleted, isn't it?
Yes.
Issues such as what you call the wetland age horticulture, growing of crops around wetlands and so on, isn't it? Again, that's a source of livelihood to the community. And again, it's permitted, of course, within certain limits. You can actually carry out that around wetlands, but just ensure that whatever you do does not end up affecting the functions of that wetland, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that is also sustainable, isn't it? But of course, we also have other activities. For example, when it comes to issues such as blockage of rivers, issues such as draining of these wetlands, issues such as introducing what you call alien species, plants that come from maybe other parts of the world or other parts of the country, introducing those over there in that wetland. And of course, that has a negative impact on the local plants in that wetland. Then that again has to be restricted, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that means for you to do that, then of course, as the authority, then we need to give you permission to carry out that, isn't it?
Okay.
So as I mentioned, wetlands are multi-sectoral resources, and it's up to us, both from the national government, of course, very critically our county governments and other stakeholders, to come up with these measures to conserve them.
All right, and it obviously takes various stakeholders to ensure that that actually comes to play.
Very true.
All right, we talked about measures, and let's come to those regulations a bit. I know you've touched on it a bit when it comes to control here and there, but when it comes to these activities, just in basic, what is it that one can do and what is it that one cannot do in most of these wetland areas? Because the way we're having this conversation even off air is that you'd realize that some people they will say that I bought land in this area. I feel like I want to build in this area, but perhaps that is one of those wetland areas whereby it is not right. So when it comes to activities and basically what someone can do and what they can't do, what is it that they can and what is it they can't do in wetland areas?
Now, in terms of what they can do and what they cannot do, what I want to mention is that, of course, again, as guided by the law, we have, first of all, what I'll advise is before, even if you have a piece of land, before you construct or do any development activity, I will advise that you come to us, come to NEMA, come to the other relevant arms of government. As I mentioned, we have WRA, Water Resources Authority. We have the county governments, and come and seek advice on what can be done in that land, especially if you have maybe something like a stream flowing through that land, isn't it? Or you have a swamp in your land, or maybe you have even a small lake in your land and so on, isn't it? So please, before you develop, come to us to advise you so you don't end up maybe running into any problems, with the regulatory authorities. So I think, as I mentioned, one of our roles is advisory, and I think we are there for the public. We are a public entity, and I think we are there to guide and assist the public when it comes to that. Now, what I want to mention is that, of course, our various laws prescribe what you call setback limits from our various ecosystems. So whether it is rivers, whether it is lakes, whether it is the ocean, we have those setback limits. Now, setback limits are put in place basically for two purposes. The first purpose is to ensure that our public or our communities don't end up, for example, putting up structures, and then they end up losing out, from those developments. All of us are aware of what happened in our territorial lakes, Lake Naivasha, Lake Bogoria, Lake Baringo, Lake Nakuru, during the last 2 or 3 years. You're aware of the flooding that occurred, isn't it? And a lot of this flooding ended up destroying a lot of property, whether it was hotels, whether it was schools, whether it was private homes and so on. And the reason why these properties were destroyed is because they are too close to those ecosystems. So part of the reason why we put up these setback limits is just to assist our community or our public to protect their properties. That's the most important cause, isn't it? But of course, the other cause is just to ensure that these ecosystems are conserved and that they don't end up being degraded by these development activities. We have an interesting example of Lake Naivasha.
Yes.
Lake Naivasha, I find that when it flooded, a lot of the animals didn't have any habitat, isn't it? If you look at Lake Naivasha itself, you find there's a lot of vegetation around the lake. And then you have the hotels and so on, isn't it? But of course, once it flooded, then the hippos and other animals had a very small habitat to dwell in, isn't it? And those hippos ended up in people's homes and so on, isn't it? And that led to human-wildlife conflict. Yeah, so I think what I would really request members of the public is just to ensure that, please, I think whatever you put up, and whatever development activity you do, please get guidance from us.
And this is why you're here for that.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about those challenges a bit, because I mean, we can talk about creation of awareness and how important it is and how we need to be conserving the wetland areas because, again, of the various reasons that you've given therein. But obviously you've faced some challenges while you go about it. Let's just go by one example where about 4 years ago, where there was that push and pull between residents and a private developer that was in Kileleshwa in terms of conservation of the Dick gardens, that particular area, and they wanted to develop that area. Just going by what I told you earlier, that sometimes one would buy a land and they would say, I want to build in this area. So going by that, which other forms of challenges perhaps do you face even as a department when it comes to implementation and proper conservation of wetland areas?
Of course, as you have mentioned, one of the biggest challenges we have is in terms of encroachment. Encroachment for, putting up houses, encroachment for development activities, encroachment for farming and so on. So that has been a major challenge in this country. You're aware of what the government did, the various arms of government did, I think about 2-3 years ago in Nairobi, where we were even forced to demolish buildings located close to riparian areas, isn't it? And will not like to go that way again, isn't it? And that's why I said that I think for you to put up any structure, please come to us for advice. So I think in terms of challenges, I think the biggest one will be in terms of encroachment, isn't it? The other major challenge that we face is in terms of exploitation of resources, isn't it? As I mentioned, we have a very strong linkage between our wetlands and other natural resources and our public, people who live around those wetlands and so on, isn't it? And in certain cases where there's no control, then you tend to find a lot of exploitation, isn't it? What I didn't mention is that in this country, only about 20% of wetlands fall in what you call protected areas. Isn't it? 80% are located in public land, formerly what you used to call the trust lands.
So the bigger chunk of it forms part of what is located in public.
Yes, about 80%, isn't it? And of course, what you find in public land, there's what you call the tragedy of the commons. And that means there's free access to those resources, and if that is not controlled, then you get over-exploitation in that one, isn't it? So I think, in terms of challenge, I think we have encroachment. The other one, of course, will be of exploitation, and as I mentioned, also of abstraction of water from these ecosystems.
All right. So let's talk about tomorrow's event, and even just before we get to the capacity of it being commemorated here in the country, given the fact that it's a global event. From your, in your capacity, how do you see in terms of the milestones made so far since this day began in terms of celebration and commemoration up until where we are now?
What I want to mention is that, of course, as I mentioned, we are party to an international convention called the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. And as part of that convention, one of the pillars of that convention is public awareness, isn't it? And that's part of the reason why we celebrate World Wetlands Day, isn't it? Now, as a country, we have been party to this convention since the year 1990. And that means we have been party, I think, for the last 22 years. And we have had national celebrations for World Wetlands Day since the year 2004. And that, again, I think is almost for the last 20 years also. Now, I think in terms of milestones, what I want to mention is that we don't simply carry out celebrations alone, but you also have activities that go hand in hand with those celebrations, isn't it? We've had this event in various parts of the country, and I happen to be the one who has actually coordinated all the celebrations since all that time, since the year 2004, isn't it? But if you go to many of the wetlands that we have celebrated, you find that we have carried out a lot of restoration and conservation activities, isn't it? So we create public awareness, bring the public together, and I think after that celebration, then now we agree on measures to conserve those ecosystems, isn't it? Now coming to tomorrow, I want to mention that the national celebration will be held at a wetland called Ondiri Swamp. Of course, the name Ondiri is actually quite interesting because it comes from the English word, Old Lake. So there used to be some Zungus, I think, who used to live around the Kikuyu area. And previously, it used to be a lake, isn't it? So they called it Old Lake. But then the local community could not pronounce Old Lake. So they called it Ondiri, isn't it? Now, Ondiri happens to be one of the most important wetland ecosystems in the country because it is the source of the Nairobi River, isn't it? Yeah. Because from Ondiri you get a river called the Nyongara, which joins other tributaries, which now become Nairobi River, isn't it? And I think as you are aware, Doreen, Nairobi River, when it flows beyond Ruai area, as it moves towards 14 Falls, then it becomes Athi River. Yeah, you get the other tributaries, it becomes Athi River, which flows into the Indian Ocean, isn't it? Yeah. And that means Ondiri is a source of all this major ecosystem that flows through 9 rivers. Through 9 counties, isn't it? Yes. Most of which are actually semi-arid, isn't it? Yeah. Now, again, coming to the venue, if you go to Ondiri right now, you'll find it's actually a very well-conserved wetland. But if you went to Ondiri about 15 years ago, it was very much degraded. And the reason why it has really improved is because the various arms of government, like NEMA, like KEFRI, Kenya Forest Research Institute, Kenya Forest Service, Water Resources Authority, Public Complaints Committee, now called National Environment Complaints Committee, the county government of Kiambu, the local community through Friends of Ondiri, the private sector, came together and agreed on the need to conserve that wetland. So we've done a lot of restoration of the wetland, and now it is in pristine condition, isn't it? And we want Ondiri to be an example, or to be a pilot, or a demonstration for all the other wetlands in the country, isn't it?
Okay, makes a lot of sense. And I was just about to ask you what is so peculiar about Ondiri, but you've mentioned that as you're telling us about tomorrow's celebration. But lastly, as we bring this conversation to a close, when it comes to tomorrow's celebration, what is it that you're going to perhaps do different? Yes, I understand it's all about creation of awareness. That's why we have this day anyway. But what will be so different that we will be looking at, and we say that as Kenyans, indeed, it actually is very important for us to be conserving and preserving our wetlands? Yeah,
I think what is unique about tomorrow, and I think as you mentioned, Doreen, of course, the first aspect is having the issue of public baraza, isn't it? Yes. Create a lot of awareness, have speeches, from invited guests, and so on and so forth, isn't it? But of course, one thing I want to mention is that globally, and of course, as spearheaded by the UN, we are in what you call the UN decade for restoration, isn't it? Or for ecosystem restoration. The decade began in 2020, and it will go on up to 2030, isn't it? And that means the focus of the global community, or global conservation community, is in terms of economic restoration, isn't it? Now, of course, on the basis of that, that would mean that even for Ondiri itself, tomorrow, our principal focus will be on enhancing or continuing with the restoration work that we have been carrying out, isn't it? Yes. So we'll be having a lot of, planting of a grass called vetiver grass, that grows around that wetland. We'll be having a lot of planting of bamboo. Bamboo is a wetland-friendly species, and that means it doesn't get a lot of water from the wetland. Planting indigenous trees and so on, isn't it? Yes. And then also focusing on other aspects of restoration. But what I want to mention is that the national event will be in Ondiri, but we'll also be having events in other counties, in Tana River County, in Kisumu County, and other counties, isn't it? Yeah, just to enhance that public creation.
So it will stretch further to various places.
Yes, exactly.
And tomorrow it will begin from 9 a.m. up until 2.
Up to about 2 o'clock.
Okay, good enough. That's a good place to end this conversation this morning. All right, so I have been speaking to Mr. Stephen Katua. He is the head of ecosystem management at NEMA, and he has been talking to us about restoration and conservation of wetlands areas here in Kenya, whereby that event will be taking place tomorrow at Ondiri in Kikuyu from 9 a.m. up until 2 p.m. This is where we bring this conversation to a close, but Good Morning Kenya continues after this break. Stay with us.
Thank you, Doreen.
Then do not let him find out. Otherwise, he'll be furious with you.
Hey, isn't there a double standard going on?
Since there will be many opportunities to work together, there's no need to rush.
I really don't know what I can do.
I trust you more than I trust myself even. You know me, right?
I'm disappointed in you. I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. Next time I'll... Hey!
Just give me a call. We can work in the development center properly.
Wana hii mimba si yako?
Una siri wewe. Jamani, unafikiri sijui ulichokifanya?
Wajua hapa sisi tuendelea kupoteza muda na ule mtoto anaendelea kuteseka kule.
Sisi tunamhitaji zaidi kuliko vile anatuhitaji sisi.
Niko tayari kuchukua hatua ya kulipiza kisasi.
Why are you doing this to me? I didn't steal anything from you.
That's what you say. But the evidence proves otherwise.
I advise you not to say things you're going to regret.
But we only want justice to be served.
I want you to know that justice is for everyone, miss.
Do you really believe that? Because I honestly don't.
Come on, Mariana, stop.
All right, that's enough.
You're going to look for another job elsewhere. I don't want you to work there because I don't want you near me.
Leonardo, this heart looks very much like the one I found at the park.
Yes.
How come you never told me it belonged to Alonso's mother? Are you that dumb, or you're just playing one? Noah's not here because he stole something. He's here because your father wants Letty to shut up and not press charges against him for attempted rape.
I've thought it through. And I think I finally understand what it is you're trying to do.
Wow. Brings tears to your eyes, right?
I want to ask a favor of you.
What is it? I'm glad to help.
The doctor says I only have about a month left.
Why would you want to be around them? What are you going to do when you get there? Make him choose between you and her? I know you won't do that.
What's he done wrong? If he were to betray Qinghuan and had an affair with another woman, I wouldn't help.
If I'm going to leave, I'm going to at least do it with dignity.
Mbona watetemeka hivyo nani?
Hilo silo swali nililokuuliza Kombo.
Jamani. Sisi tuko hapa kutafuta suluhisho au tutabilingana kwa maneno?
Kama hauna la maana tafadhali usiongee. Yaani mimi nimekuja hapa unisupport mara alafu anza kuniongesha mambo ambayo mimi mwenyewe hata sielewi.
And we are back. Thank you so much for staying with us this far. We appreciate that you are still with us here on Good Morning Kenya. But in case you're just joining us, karibu tena sana. We send you lots of hugs. It is the month of love, as it was earlier noted. Let us know where you're watching us from this morning. You talk to us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1 across the social media platforms. My handle is at Jane Wamboi. So right now we want to move to our health segment, as we always do it every Tuesday. And today we are just here to have more of a learning experience and get to understand what we mean when we talk about sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease. Today we have an expert and a champion in this particular area to tell us about their journey and also give us a professional understanding of what we mean when you talk about a sickle cell disease. So I'll start with the lady to my extreme left. She is Dr. Doreen Mutua, who is a pediatric hematologist oncologist working at Gertrude Children's Hospital. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kenya, and good morning, Jane. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for making time to be with us.
Yeah.
And to my immediate right, we have Joe Mudukiza, who is a playwright and drama trainer, as well as a sickle cell awareness champion. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Karibu tena sana. Now let's start with the basics. As we talked before we went on air, this is basically class 101. So let me start with you, Daktari.
Yes.
Sickle cell anemia, sickle cell disease, we all have our own understanding, guided or misguided, of what it could be. But what is it? What does it encompass?
All right. So sickle cell disease, sickle cell anemia, I will not split hairs because it's really not important. It's one big disease. It's a blood disorder.
Okay.
And that's very important for me to say that, because a lot of people come in thinking their child has cancer.
And because that's what we think we know.
Exactly. And I say, no, no, no. This is very, very different from cancer. This is actually a blood disorder. And it's inherited. That also is something very important for somebody to be aware of. And that means then you need to have it in your family history. The other thing is it's a disorder of the red blood cells.
Okay.
And because medicine, more or less, initially people would just describe what they saw. They saw that this disorder presented with red blood cells that look like sickles. I know people know the sickle to cut the grass with, and so they just called it sickle cell disease.
Yeah.
So what exactly happens is that a patient gets, or you get a mutation. And that mutation, when the oxygen levels go low, the red blood cell is usually like a donut. It's oval or round. It changes its shape from being round to a sickle. Now, that gives it a disadvantage because when the red blood cell is discoid, it's able to maneuver itself through the blood vessel. But if it changes its shape, then it becomes very difficult to move through the blood vessels, especially the small ones. So what happens is there is an obstruction of blood flow. And remember, what is blood carrying? Blood is carrying the food, the oxygen that is going to various tissues. So if there is an obstruction, then what happens is that tissue starts to actually die off. And so the hallmark of sickle cell disease is usually pain. And most patients will get a pain crisis, either a pain in the hand, a pain in the leg, a pain in the back, pain in the chest. And that's what most people will see and say, oh, I've seen a patient with sickle cell disease, and basically they tend to have lots of pain. Now, the body also has a way of detecting that these red blood cells don't look normal. So it tries to get rid of them. And that is what we get. As it's trying to get rid of them, it actually breaks these red blood cells and produces a yellow pigment, which we see in the eyes of most patients with sickle cell disease, that actually looks yellow. So we say they are jaundiced. But that will look, their tissues look yellow, their eyes look yellow. And because of that constant removal of the red blood cell, that's what brings the anemia. That means a low hemoglobin level. So basically, an abnormal red blood cell, the body is trying to get rid of it, you get the anemia. And also because of the obstruction of the flow of blood, that is what brings the pain. So the hallmark of sickle cell disease is really anemia, the yellowness, jaundice, and pain crisis.
Beautifully put out. Now, when it comes to the diagnosis of sickle cell disease, at what point can it be detected by a professional at least before, or is it at the point where we get to see the symptoms, or at what point can you as a professional detect it, or what is it called, give a prognosis?
Yes.
Yes.
So the diagnosis of sickle cell ideally can be done at birth.
Okay.
Remember, it's inherited, meaning right after birth we can actually do what we call newborn screening. We don't do that right here in Kenya, but there are plans to go on to do that, and you can detect it as early at birth. And within the first 2 weeks of life, a child, you'll know this one has sickle cell, this is a carrier of the disease, and this child is normal.
All right.
But in our setting, we wait for our patients to come in with symptoms. Then we test them. But unfortunately, that is also not a very good strategy, because a lot of children walk around in different hospitals being given blood, being given blood boosters, being treated for infections, misdiagnosed. And so by the time they are really getting a diagnosis of sickle cell, it's already too late.
It's a bit too late.
And basically, so the best way to do it, as you heard, if I said, if you find it's within your bloodline, what you do, you have your children tested as soon as they're born. Let them be tested. Within about 2 weeks, you spin a specialist. The children, we started them on medications, and sometimes they never even end up with a crisis.
All right.
Yes.
Now, let me come to you, Joe. You know, you have lived a full life this far, but tell us a bit about the first time you got the diagnosis that, you know, you actually are a carrier.
Okay, I'm not a carrier. I have the condition.
Okay.
So
apologies for that.
I was born with it.
Okay.
I did not know that I had sickle cell until when I was joining Form 1. I was going to high school in a different environment. So that's when my mom told me, but I was born with it.
Okay.
I was on medication since I was a child.
All right.
Yeah, so I guess they did not want to explain a lot to me, so they kept on telling me that I was a special child.
Kunywa hizi dawa, you're a special child.
So I kept on walking with a bag of medicine since like forever.
All right, so you got to know when you were joining high school?
Yeah, I got to know when I was joining high school because now my mom was leaving me at the school. And
boarding school?
Yeah.
And
I wanted to go to boarding school. They wanted me to go to day school, but I wanted to go to a boarding school.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, let me come back to you, Doc. You know, as a point of correction from just what he brought up, he was born with it, but then there's the carrier. What's the difference between those two?
So a carrier is just that they are a carrier of the disease.
The mutated gene?
Of the mutated gene.
Okay.
But they don't manifest the disease. So, and that is something very good to highlight.
Yes.
Because a lot of the patients who come in, or parents come in and they're told your child has sickle cell disease, but they say, but I've really never seen anyone in our family with it. And I say, no. The reason that you don't have any symptoms is because you're a carrier. But when you have two carriers, there's always a 25% chance that they can get a child with sickle cell disease. So it's possible in all your bloodline, you might never really have heard about sickle cell, but the fact that your child is now testing positive for sickle cell disease, then it means it's in your bloodline, and you're just a carrier. So carriers really are normal. They'll never have anemia, they don't have pain, but they have the potential to give the disease to their children.
All right, so you could be having the mutated gene, but it's not affecting you or symptomatic in any way?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the main difference. I told you, learning lesson, learning time here. Now, coming back to you, Joe, when you were first told by your parents that, you know what, you're a special child, I mean, growing up understanding you're special up until this time you went to high school, how did it affect your lifestyle, if it did in any way?
Okay.
From what you can remember and from what you've experienced this far.
So, since when I was a small child, I used to have pain crises all the time. And my parents wanted me to grow like any other normal child. So I would go outside, jump, play, then I come back crying in crisis. The next thing I know, I'm in hospital. or first aid. Actually, my parents were very learned people.
So professional first aid givers.
Yeah. So as I was told when I was a child, I started manifesting the symptoms when I was like a month old. But then I was treated for malaria. So I kept on being treated for malaria. Then my mom decided that we should do the genetic testing
and screening.
And screening. And then they found out that I had sickle cell. And then they put me on medication immediately. But growing up, it wasn't easy. But knowing I was special, being told I was special, I'm a child. Okay, it's something to be happy about.
Yes.
I didn't know what that was, but
blissful
I know,
ignorance in
I'm special. My mom comes, my dad comes with some fruits, pale kidogo, and then nobody else is being given that attention. So I'm special. I'm happy. I'm special. Now, when I got to Form 1, I'm being told that you have sickle cell. I actually don't know what that means. So I was like, okay. Until when I started having a lot of challenges in boarding school.
Okay.
Then there is the issue of stigma.
Tell us a bit about those challenges. Just hear from your personal journey, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Okay. When I was in high school, a lot of people used to avoid me. I was in high school in 2009. People didn't understand what sickle cell was, and then there was this issue of being in a cult or something, because when you are in class and then pain crisis comes, you will have the pain. Sickle cell pain is very excruciating. You can't just sit there and pretend nothing is happening. You'll have to react to it, and most of the time you'll end up crying. So when you end up crying, maybe you faint or something, and then they take you to the sanatorium, and then people start talking. And then there is this thing, when you are growing up with sickle cell, you are small-bodied, because also puberty comes in late. So people start branding you names, like maybe they think you have HIV or something. Now that you're on medication all the time. During that time, people used to believe when you have a lot of medication, that is for specifically for a certain condition, when it was actually sickle cell. So in high school, I never used to have friends, because now everybody is talking negatively about you. So anybody who would want to be close to you, they'll have to avoid you.
There was a lot of hearsay going on. All right. Now, let me come back to you, Daktari.
Yes.
What are these health risks that come along with sickle cell disease, at least the known ones, which directly impact on an individual's life?
So, sickle cell is a chronic disease. We manage it. We are not yet curing it, but maybe we'll talk about cure later.
Yes.
So that means, like our warrior has said, and I really acknowledge and thank you for bringing out a lot of those stigma, because that's what keeps our patients or even our parents away from hospitals trying to seek help, because some of them are trying to hide and shelter their children because they don't want them to be labeled as a curse or to be told, why are you taking all these medications? So he's really brought out some of the misconceptions people have, even some of them thinking that it's contagious, and it's not, and not really understanding. Sometimes even teachers don't understand how painful that pain is, and some will say, I think your child is malingering. He doesn't want to go to school, or he doesn't want to play sports. And so we really have to raise awareness, and thank you for giving us that opportunity to do that, because sickle cell pain is real and nobody deserves to be. In fact, if you ask most patients with sickle cell, what's your most distressing symptom? They usually say, take care of my pain. All right? So basically the health risks of sickle cell disease, we can put them in two categories. There are those ones that will occur in the short term. We call them acute complications. Like, for example, the pain crisis, getting recurrent infections. And I'm glad he's talked about malaria, because if you look at the sickle cell map, sickle cell is largely an African disease. 90% of the patients who have sickle cell are actually found in Africa.
Is there a racial aspect to it in terms of the African or the darker tone race?
No, actually, it's really, I think, because of the geography of it and the environment. And what you'd find is that the sickle cell map and the malaria map are actually almost, you can superimpose them.
Wow.
And the reason, even in Kenya, you don't find sickle cell everywhere. You find it towards the lake region. You tend to find it also down at the coast, malaria dense zone. Because if you're a carrier of sickle cell, then you become immune, almost immune to malaria. So it's a way to adapt to that environment. But remember, carriers didn't have symptoms. So when they come together, they get a child with sickle cell, and most of the patients with sickle cell are very susceptible to getting malaria. So infections, malaria, getting anemia, those would be now the shorter term that you would see. But in the long run, if sickle cell is also not managed appropriately, and that is why it's so important for parents to seek help, because there's so much we can do for our children. You get chronic complications, the organs start changing. You start having changes in the brain, changes in the eyes, changes in the lung, changes in the heart, changes in the kidneys, changes in the bones, the vessels. So those long-term complications, we can avoid them. We can minimize them by giving them the appropriate therapy.
Now, are there any other known causes of sickle cell aside from the mutation that has been so far detected?
No, actually it's a point mutation. That means it's one gene that has a mutation, and that is it. Yeah, so there's really no other way to get it. It must be something in your bloodline. You get that DNA from your parents and it's passed on down the line.
All right. Now, in terms of the treatment options that are available, let me hear from you, Joe. You know, you were used to taking medicines for so long. It became part of your lifestyle. Was that the main form of treatment you are receiving up until to date?
Yes. For sickle cell, the main form, we call it management because there is no known treatment for that. So the kind of medication I used for management, I used them since I was a child and I'm still using them up to now. And they are concurrent. You have to keep on using them because sometimes if you stop, you find that the symptoms persist. The pain comes in more often. And also my mom told me that there is also the issue of diet. We really observe diet a lot. So me, most of the time, I'm put on fruits and greens. So I avoid a lot of meat and a lot of proteins.
Why is that important, Dr.? Just because that's a complete shift of lifestyle from what a normal child or teenager would want, but looking at the importance of diet when it comes to the management part of sickle cell disease.
So it's an interesting point because coming from an expert, I usually get that question of, is there any special diet I should give my child to increase the blood levels? And I say, really nothing. Nothing will work for your child. Let this child eat healthy like any other child. But in terms of diet, I make a disclaimer: water. And I'm so glad I found our warrior carrying his water bottle. In fact, that's the first thing I'm like, when you're walking into the clinic, where's your water bottle? Because they need to take lots of fluids. Even the reason why he goes for sports day or he goes to play and comes back with a crisis is because of dehydration. So if he really wants to enjoy his time out, you must drink a lot of water. In fact, they don't drink the normal quantities. They drink almost 1.5 times more. If they do that, they can actually avoid. Otherwise, everything else in the diet is allowable, but I'm still happy they gave you that special diet that made you feel so special, and you're truly special.
Absolutely. Now, still keeping up with this particular aspect of treatment and management, correct terminologies, we learn as we go, the management of sickle cell, and especially in the Kenyan space, how would you term it? How are we doing as a country?
Lots of progress on board. Because I know we are making small baby steps, but I really want to acknowledge them because one of the things that we get our patients presenting very late. They come in, we wait for them to develop symptoms, and at that point is when we are diagnosing them. They've had several blood transfusions, they've had lots of infections. Even a lot of our children don't meet their In fact, it was estimated that more than 90% of our children with sickle cell disease will not celebrate their 5th birthday. Why? Because they will die of malaria, they'll die of infections, things we could have prevented. So looking into how we can really have newborn screening is something very key. But recently we had the launch of the sickle cell guidelines. And what you find, even in Kenya, not most doctors know how to really treat sickle cell disease. So those guidelines help even a doctor in Mashinani, in Homa Bay, in Migori, just go into the internet, get those guidelines, and be able to actually see how do I manage each, and they're simplified, they're there, and you can be. So we are also trying to see how can we be able to get newborn screening, diagnose them as early as possible. We are in talks to see how can we subsidize the drugs. He says we manage this disease. So that means he has to take medication for the rest of his life. But it's possible to take those medications and have a very full life, a normal life expectancy. So that is still okay. But also beyond that is sickle cell can be cured. All right, and I'll really just say that because a lot of the patients are now reading about bone marrow transplants and gene therapy, and I say there's a lot of science going back in the background trying to see how can we cure sickle cell. All right, and I can see the next 10 years we'll be talking something very different about sickle cell, and I only pray that we can make it accessible to our patients, because not all our patients can be able to get out to go and get a transplant. But yes, it's possible.
It is
gene
possible.
therapy, as we said, it's a point mutation. So gene therapy just goes actually to, it sends almost like a small vector, goes to the gene and actually corrects it.
All
and
right.
we cure sickle cell.
Remember, this is all about sickle cell anemia, sickle cell disease, however you choose to refer to it. We're just trying to create more awareness around this particular condition. We welcome you to share with us your questions, comments, or if you're just seeking clarification, use the hashtag #GoodMorningKenya on Twitter. We take a very quick breather. We'll be back to continue with this discussion. Don't go anywhere.
Wana hii mimba si yako?
Una siri wewe. Jamani, unafikiri sijui ulichokifanya?
Wajua hapa sisi tuendelea kupoteza muda na yule mtoto anaendelea kuteseka kule.
Sisi tunamhitaji zaidi kuliko vile anatuhitaji sisi.
Niko tayari kuchukua hatua ya kulipiza kisasi.
De traición.
You're being pathetic, Santiago. I don't know why you're so jealous of your brother.
No, Father, I'm not jealous of my brother. If I'm telling you I want her to leave, it's because I have good reasons.
Hey, be careful with what you're about to say.
But the one thing I can't understand is why is everybody so crazy about that crass girl? Even my foolish brother.
Just think that in the long run, if you didn't break up with her, you would have hurt her worse, and you would have hurt yourself as well.
So what if I did? So do you want her to find out what went on between us? She might end up committing suicide.
Oh, come on, why would you do that?
Well, she is intense just like you.
Lying heart. Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Thank you for staying with us. We continue with this beautiful discussion today, all about creating a more awareness around the sickle cell disease. With me in studio, we have Dr. Doreen Mutua, who is a pediatric hematologist oncologist working at Gertrude's Hospital, Children's Hospital, and we also have Joe Mudukiza, who is a sickle cell warrior as well as a playwright and drama trainer. Now, let me come straight to you, Daktari. This goes back to something that we had mentioned earlier, in line with what Joe said he was passing through because of the misunderstanding that we have around sickle cell disease. And I'd like to start with the whole question of life expectancy, because as rightfully put, in as much as we try to distance ourselves from culture and taboo, there is also that influence that it has in some of these diseases, people thinking it's a curse or, it's a taboo, therefore, utapita hii miaka. When it comes to the life expectancy of someone who has sickle cell disease, clear the air for us there.
All right. So I'm looking at the average life expectancy of Kenya being like 47 years.
Okay.
On average, I think. Slightly more for women, maybe 48 years. So sicklers can actually live, but the key word is early treatment, early diagnosis and early treatment, so that you avoid those chronic complications, because those chronic complications are what end up resulting in a shortened lifespan. So like I was clearly saying, that Joe is very lucky. He's among the children who crossed their 5th birthday. You could see most of our children die before 90% die before 5 years.
Okay.
But that really is something that is changing. And we are now beginning to see doctors who are sicklers, pharmacists who are sicklers, engineers who are sicklers, bankers, a playwright, a drummer. So a teacher, you can find all these careers have people. So it is possible. We know elsewhere in settings where they really look after their patients from pretty young, we've had people live up to 70, 80 years, university professors. So there is a lot of hope.
Okay.
But we must demystify sickle cell and take off this myth so that people are not afraid to come out and bring their children to be tested and to be treated, because it's something we can do.
Now, still keeping up with, trying to live a managed life, we also find as parents, we get overprotective. My child has sickle cell disease, so I will protect them, and rightfully so, as every parent would want. But when it comes to understanding that they can also live a full life while still, managing the condition, because you find most are kept away to just protect them. How would you clarify that area when it comes to allowing your child to just be while still helping them protect themselves?
So that's a very good question, because being inherited, a lot of parents actually blame themselves. They're like, I probably gave this to my child. And over time, they start learning, oh, your child has to drink a lot of water, your child has to be in hospital, they don't want a pain crisis. So they start guarding. But then what that does is really to shelter this child and not allow them to achieve their potential. There are medications that we start very early on, and one of them, and I put a big highlight on it because it's really the game changer for sickle cell disease, is hydroxyurea. And that hydroxyurea at an appropriate dose, some children, even their anemia is corrected. They don't even have pain crisis. If they take their water well, they get all their vaccines, they're taking their antibiotic, their prophylactic antibiotics. These are children who really can go for sports day, they can enjoy. Sometimes if the water is nice and warm, it's warm weather, they can have a swim. So we allow and we really counsel our patients, please do not make these children like small eggs. Let them experience life.
They can live a full life like any other child. They can live a full life.
All right. Let them enjoy themselves. Don't make them feel that, oh, because I'm a sickler, I can't do. Because then when you quickly see them in their teenage years, that's a time you're having lots of problems with our children with sickle cell, because they've already developed complexes within themselves. Like, I'm very happy Joe survived high school and he did it without many issues, but I promise you it becomes a terrible time, because now they're in charge of their medication, they're in charge of knowing I need to take water, they don't understand why this is happening to them. So one of the journeys we also work with the parents with is how to disclose. And from a very young age to start teaching them what is sickle cell. Yes, you're slightly different, but this is why are my eyes yellow? This is it. But you're beautiful, you're handsome the way you are.
All right.
So that they learn accepting themselves early.
Now, that brings me to the whole aspect of awareness, and this goes back to a petition you made a few years ago. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, before I go to the petition,
yes,
there is something Dr. has talked about. I would want to
go ahead
to clarify about it. Okay, medication. There is medication, yes, and people are using the medication. But then we forget at a point where we have those people in the village who can't afford that kind of medication. Sickle cell medication is very expensive. At the cheapest you can find hydroxyurea is probably maybe 45 shillings. But during
for
the pandemic, pill? Yeah. No, one pill, and you need to take one every day. During the pandemic, in the villages, it increased to around 75 shillings. So you find there is that gap whereby there are some people who can manage to afford, but there are those who can't.
Don't have even access to it.
So you'll find most of the people who have sickle cell are children between the age of 1 to 15. Why? Because most of them don't live to see adulthood. Yeah, so they die because they can't get the medication. And then you go to the village, there is this misinformation that maybe this is a bad omen, or maybe the mother contributed to it and not the father. So most of the children with sickle cell don't actually live with fathers because they end up being sent away.
Excommunicated.
Yeah, you find in the villages it's very common. So that is why most of the times I take my awareness to the villages. Now, let's come to the petition. I did a petition a few years ago when I was 19, now I'm 27, to Parliament to declare sickle cell a national health priority and also to subsidize the medication that people use. Okay, Parliament has a lot of legislations that they are looking into, a lot of bills that needs to be passed. So not taking something to Parliament makes it so special, or they have to take it into consideration because people are dying. They'll tell you you have to wait. We've been waiting since then. We took it with Isaac Maura. We've been waiting. He's been following up, but then a lot has not been done on it. But at least we made a point whereby they had to recognize the condition. If you go to hospitals, you will find that sickle cell has not been listed among those non-communicable diseases. It's not there. Probably they have listed it recently because the ministry has been working a lot on talking about sickle cell and finding legislations that could work.
So how then, as we bring the conversation to a close, when it comes to building more awareness around sickle cell disease, what practical ways would you encourage each and every individual to venture into or to look into to just try and, be that carrier of this message?
It's not easy to do awareness because awareness, it needs a lot of funding. Yeah, and most of the awareness that you need to go there. Okay, not everybody is watching TV now. We have those ones who
Kenya is
really
watching.
need...
Kenya is watching.
It's watching, but not everyone.
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, so you'll need to go to the villages.
Yes.
That kind of awareness is expensive. Now, me, I manage it. I used to manage it because my dad used to assist me. He used to fund me to do the awareness until he stopped. So taking awareness, okay, he died. So from cancer 6 months ago. So he was the one who was funding a lot of my awareness. But now I have to do it out of my own pocket. But what I would like to encourage is everybody, anybody who would want to encourage others, just talk to them. Encourage them. You find patients with sickle cell, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go to hospital.
So it takes a mental toll.
You talk to most of them about the condition, they'll shut you down.
Okay.
They'll ask you not to do that.
So hear from the individual to understand.
Yeah, starting from the ground, making it normal to talk about it so that people can understand. And then there is this treating people like they are special people. You meet someone who has sickle cell because because they are small-bodied, you brand them names or you call them different things, it makes them to shy away, so they won't talk about. But again, acceptance is very important.
It starts with the individual.
It starts with you accepting that you have the condition and knowing how to manage it on a personal level.
Okay.
That is very important.
It's part of the starting point of the journey.
Yeah.
All right.
If you don't accept it, then you could as well condemn yourself to death.
All right. Now, coming to you, Daktari, again, very briefly, still on that aspect of creating more awareness and now looking at even our professionals who might not really know how to pick it up when it comes to symptoms, when it comes to following the guidelines, looking at the professional space, how can we create awareness even in that space to just make sure that, you know, we are all working towards the same goal?
All right. So I'll quickly say that there is a World Sickle Cell Day.
Yeah.
It's June 19th, and we celebrate it every year. And every year there's a theme that we would. And I think over the recent years we've had several walks, a lot of advocacy activities on that World Sickle Cell Day, and sometimes even spanning through the week. Basically, the National Sickle Cell Guidelines are a real go-to because they teach you everything that you need to. As a doctor, yes, you might have heard a little bit about sickle cell, but the nitty-gritties of what to do with it, how to diagnose it, when to suspect it, you can easily get that. They are accessible. If you have a bit of bundles, you can download them and actually just have them on your phone.
Okay.
Then we have the Kenya Sickle Cell Foundation. Please, we all work with each other, the Kenya Pediatric Association. We are all working together, public and private institutions. This opportunity you've given us, there's a lot, somebody who's heard a little about sickle cell, and maybe whatever you can, just share that information, that this disease can be managed.
Yes.
You don't need to hide. It's not contagious. It's potentially going to be curable soon for patients who need that, but they can live very fulfilling lives with just good comprehensive care of these patients.
All right. Now, very quickly, there's some few questions that have come in. We have Kibet, I'll just be mentioning one name, who is asking, how do you know you are a carrier?
Okay, that is simple. Again,
very briefly, I'm told we are almost out of time.
Yes, blood test. A blood test, we put it in the machine and it will tell us what's your blood group.
So just go for blood work and you'll be able to
tell.
The professionals can tell.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing from your pot of knowledge and your experience as well. We appreciate that. Once again, we have been speaking with Joe Mudukiza, who is a sickle cell warrior, as well as a playwright and drama trainer, and Dr. Doreen Mutua, who is a pediatric hematologist oncologist. That is a long title. Working at Gertrude's Children's Hospital. Thank you so much for being with us. That is that from us here on Good Morning Kenya. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. My name is Jane Ramboy. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Then do not let him find out. Otherwise, he'll be furious with you.
Hey, isn't there a double standard going on?
Since there will be many opportunities to work together, there's no need to rush.
I really don't know what I can do.
I trust you more than I trust myself even. You know me, right?
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. Next time I'll... Hey!
Just give me a call. You can work in the development center properly.